This Week in Action.
He doesn't realize he's already part of a never-ending story.
Talk to the developers.
Are you playing with my emotions?
Let's get sad and then
Too good to be true.
That's not what they did here. When's the money going?
what other horror stories could come of this?
We love Tencent.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Action Podcast 63, Loremaster Edition. My name is Aaron, owner and operator of the YouTube channel Action RPG, and with me, as always, is two of my friends, two of the channel leaders, the people that truly run this channel, Daft and Guilty. Go ahead and say hello, gentlemen.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, yo!
Oh, that time you all broke up. That time it didn't work out.
Oh, it didn't work out. Oh, bummer.
Yeah,
I blame Aaron.
Oh,
Yeah, it didn't
Sorry.
work very well. And as you could see above us all, towering above us all, we have a new face, and he is on vacation in Hawaii. Per it seems, we have Kyle, the lore master from EHG himself. Kyle, go ahead and say hello, sir.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
Awesome. We have a great 90 minutes planned out for you today. We talked about it over the week and we kind of brought it together. We'll see how it's going to go. We definitely want to have some Q&A time at the end of the stream and maybe answer some questions as we go along. At the beginning, though, what we're going to do is I'm going to allow Kyle to kind of introduce himself. He can talk about whatever he wants, how he came to the game, how he writes the story, his background, whatever you want to say, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, my name is Kyle Milberg, and I've been with EHG since before it was called EHG. I was there. I remember one day driving home from work in about May of 2017, and I got a phone call from my cousin, a guy named Judd, you guys might be familiar with, and he just calls me up. I'm driving home from work. I answer it, and he's just, hey, do you want to write for the video game we're going to make? I was like, sure. And then, yeah, that's how we started making a game. It started out with just Judd, myself, and a couple other people that we had found on Reddit and other just online places, and it is very much a, all right, we don't know how to use Unity. We don't know if we should use Unity. Who knows how to program? Who likes the games we like? And just over the course of a year plus, we got, a small team that made a demo for Kickstarter, made a Kickstarter, and, that brought in somebody. We got more people, made, eventually got onto Steam, and it just kept on growing and growing and growing. And yeah, like, it's crazy to look back on it and gonna see how it went from, me driving home from work and just getting called like, hey, I want to write for a game, to this big thing now. So yeah.
And have you worked on games in the past? So like, do you have a background in games, or was just like your cousin Judd, which I found out today that Judd's Kyle's cousin.
That's super cool.
very nice.
Awesome.
So was it, oh, I've worked on games my whole life, Kyle, we need you for this? Or was it, Kyle, I'm starting something crazy, I need my road dog by my side? Like, how did that happen?
So nothing professional. I've messed with RPG Maker off and on since middle school. Like, I've always run little stories. I've always had it in the back of my mind, oh, what would a game that I would be shaped like story wise? I've always been interested in games my entire life, and stories my entire life, and it used to be a thing where I was a little kid, and Judd and I were just little 7-year-olds. I'd be drawing out the map for oh, hey, here's what I think Donkey Kong Country 2 should be before Donkey Kong Country 2 was a thing. Here's this this level and this level, and it's so even though we never worked professionally in the industry at all, we've always had just a passion for the medium, and yeah, we just kind of pursued it. And
so you would say this is your first professional game?
It's still indie, right?
Yeah, I mean,
double A.
Double A, single A.
Okay,
maybe
it's
B+.
the Solar Bears. Got it. It's the Solar Bears.
I already told Kyle earlier that EHG is never allowed to be AAA, including Last Epoch.
No,
so
they can't.
even if they have
don't do it.
500 employees and are the biggest game in the world, they still have to be indie. So because
I mean, we're always going to have that kind of like indie.
What's the
spirit
difference, though?
Of, what?
Like, at what point does AA become AAA?
dude, so I looked it up today. EHG has EHG has over 110 employees.
Yeah,
Crate,
That's what
who
blows
made
my
Grim
mind
Dawn.
that we have that many people.
13.
I think it's 15. Crate has 15.
Oh, they got.
I think
15
They
employees.
added.
Crate has
Ooh, they
15, and
added.
then I looked up Grinding Gear Games, and the
Right.
estimate's 106.
Two. Oh, okay. I think it was 2 guys that work 24 hours a day.
Dude, 110 employees at EHG that's a big gaming studio.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
mean,
not
huge.
but it's not
It doesn't feel
Blizzard,
like it.
right? You know, it's not.
Unity is a very good game engine. It's used by more than video games. It's used for augmented reality. It's used for manufacturing. It's used for defense simulation. It's actually quite sturdy.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So, Kyle, thank you for sharing and thank you for being here with us. We're really excited. Literally guilty every single week. It's like, I want to get the Loremaster on here so I could ask him why the bird
Yes.
kills the horse.
Last month and a half. Yeah.
Facts.
Okay. Right now I am logged into the game. I've been working on an unarmed paladin. Anyways, I was like, what character have I probably beaten the most of the campaign with? And I think this is it. Oh, never. Oh, there's still a bunch.
Unarmed?
Maybe there's a bunch
Or-
I haven't done. Either way, yeah, unarmed. I'm working on unarmed.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
There's
I
like a
read
new
the
unique that
CT.
lets you do that. Like a,
Yeah,
like a
it's this
glove
right
with
here.
knife.
It's Hand
It's
of
a glove.
Judgment.
Yeah.
Somebody gifted me this one with 3 legendary potential, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna have to try and put something together.
And it's low level, so it's easy to.
Yeah, you could use it right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we want to do to start off this Loremaster stream is we kind of had an idea where Kyle can kind of walk us through the overarching story of Last Epoch. And I have to ask, Kyle, would you say you wrote or put together 50%, 80%, 95%? How much of the story comes directly from your brain?
So
Hey, Aaron.
What?
Yeah.
Can you up his mic for everyone?
No, I have his mic turned up all the way on my end.
Okay.
I'll bring the mic a little closer to my face and try and speak up a little bit.
That'll work.
Okay, and back to the question.
Hey.
So it depends on what.
Go ahead. You're good. Go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, so as far as just like the structure of the story and the actual like the overarching story beats, it's all essentially it sounds so it sounds so full by myself to say it's mostly me, but I remember like way back before Kickstarter, like plotting out the story overview document, and we're still like for the most part following that today. So like there are like other pieces, like it's more than me as far as like the actual execution of things, a lot of the like actual like fleshing out of things, the like like once you get into like the actual nitty gritty of all this, it's a much more collaborative effort. But like for like just the overall story of like these are the major characters, these are the major beats, this is what this is the direction the story is going as far as like chapter to chapter. That all still kind of tracks back to the like original story overview documents I made way back when.
So it's all yours. Basically,
Yeah,
it's
I feel so weird saying, oh, it's all me. But
I mean, obviously you probably have filters that, hey, this is how I want to take the story. This is my thoughts. This is how this is going to work. This is where this item's going to fit in. This is how I want to extend the story. And
yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It's absolutely a collaborative effort. Like,
yes,
like you could say for a lot of that stuff, I'm like the idea guy, but idea guys don't get anywhere if there's not someone actually there thinking about implementation, thinking about how to make it better, how to make it work with stuff. Like, so yeah, like a fun example of that is like the world map. If you were to actually look at the world map a lot of the detail actually came from collaboration. A lot of them from our like lead systems architect, like because he has a huge passion for like the nitty gritty of world building. Wherein like, yeah, if you go over to like say Imperial era or Divine era, and you just zoom all the way out, like yeah, go ahead and zoom like all the way out if you don't mind. Or does it let you zoom out from?
That's as far. So this is as close. This is as far.
Yep.
I'm too spoiled by like the having access to the full
Having
4K.
tools.
And having access to the full 4K image of it. But yeah, I remember a million years ago at my old job, like just on sticky notes, sketching out the very beginning version of this, and it was literally just a green kind of blob with a snowy part, a deserty part, and an ocean to, you know, over on the west side, and all the actual like details like that sea in the middle, like the differences in terrain all over there, all like 90% of that stuff was from our lead systems architect, for example, because he just has a passion for like the map making and filling out the tiny little sub locations that aren't part of the main story beats.
So being the lore master, do you have any part in the map making based upon regions and where certain enemies and different empires are from and things of that nature?
Oh yeah, like it, a lot comes down to like what is like the overarching stuff versus like the like more detailed like underpinning stuff, like, and a lot of it also comes down to just how our processes have changed over the course of working on this for 5+ years.
Yeah.
Like, one example that I can like immediately point to is when we were first making the one funny thing is when I talk about the chapters, it's going to take me a minute to like remember what number the chapters are, because I have it hard coded in my brain our internal like scene documentation terms of them. Like, let's see, the chapter where you go through the like Immortal Citadel, that is called chapter E internally. So over here it'd be chapter 6, I think. Is that right?
Daft actually knows the most about the lore, probably of any person here, because at one point he read the whole thing and took the time, and he really enjoys campaign.
Noticed when it got buffed up, and I've always kind of liked the lore in games and tried to follow it. I always like the type of player who goes to all the corners of the game and generally tries to complete it, like a completionist type of mentality towards it.
Nice.
And even now, more of the same. Been playing it for years and years and years since the Kickstarter, before it was on Steam, and watched the iterations. And it's funny, as we're talking about to the Loremaster, you Kyle, how the original portrayal of Last Epoch was when I first joined it, when it was all the void, it was all the little purple guys everywhere. Just the beginning of the game was so packed with an abundance of everything.
Well, once we get to like the chapter by chapter actually gonna walk through, I really want to get into just how the beginning of the game has changed over time. But like back to my example. So yeah, chapter 6, where you're going through the sewers and up to the Immortal Citadel, the necropolis and all that. Like back then, that was like not too long after Kickstarter. We're still a fairly small team. Like, you know, it's back in the day where like I'm like writing like the enemy write-ups for every enemy, where like I'm, you know, writing a description of the scavenger things, writing up the description of all the fallen ospreys. And nowadays, for example, like you look at chapter 9, I, you know, wrote up, you know, the kind of the pitch for the Scalebane, and you know, the Nagasa were like part of like the original pitches from way back. But like stuff like the Spine Hunters and other like wildlife, I had less of a hand in that kind of stuff. But you know, but yeah, compared to like say like the Scalebane and like the pitch for like what their whole deal is, whereas you know back to, you know, chapter 6, where like I was way more involved in every piece of that. So just as like time goes on, more and more stuff kind of becomes less my hands directly in it. But that's because we have a lot more people, a lot more specialized people that, you know, are more suited to like figuring out like, you know, hey, what kind of wildlife works best for the kind of, you know, threats here.
Yeah.
Right.
Does EHG have plans in the future for lore books, art books, actual collectible?
You mean physical merchandise? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. Books, like novels.
Yeah, we've talked about that since pre-Kickstarter. It's just always been a big priority thing of just like when would we be able to devote the resources to it? And
Yeah.
so like we've talked about it. I could say we don't have any like active plans that I'm aware of, but we're always talking about it. We've always wanted it.
Awesome.
If you
Yeah.
put out a novel, I'll buy it.
And if
Thank
you can
That's
see
very
behind
flattering.
Kyle, a bunch of the stuff behind me is that type of stuff, you know, swag, if you will, from various games from the past and stuff. So
Nice. Hopefully, in a couple of years, I'll be even more like removed from the nitty gritty, like detail work in the engine. I'll be able to actually write books for the game.
right.
That would be awesome. Okay. Chapter 1, you're going to have to direct me because I don't know where the heck I'm going. So let's say where's chapter?
So, chapter 1, go to Divine Era, and you're actually pretty close to one more over. Yeah, and just pan up a little bit. Look for that fire. Electric Eclipse is actually the best spot there. So, zoom in.
Here? No. Yes.
Chapter 1. I almost said chapter Z, but chapter 1. Yeah, so go ahead and zoom way in over there. And actually, that's a fantastic opportunity for me to go on a tangent. Internally, chapter 1 is referred to as chapter Z for like our scene codes and everything, because it actually was not the first chapter originally. Originally, chapter 2, where you're in the Ruined Era and in Last Refuge, was our intro to the game, our first chapter in the game. And if you don't mind, if you go to the Ruined Era tab, I can ramble about that for a minute. So way back, and actually guys zoom in on Last Refuge and find Last Refuge Outskirts.
You spent a lot of time there in the early game.
Oh yeah. So way back, this is like post Kickstarter, but before like we had our big Steam release where we were actually like only letting players through the launcher we set out for people. Was the game started in the Last Refuge Outskirts, because originally all the player characters were supposed to be from the Ruined Era and be actual like people who lived in Last Refuge, and they all had different backstories that were related to how they lived in Last Refuge. Like the Acolyte back then was someone who was like learning necromancy from the old teachings of the Immortal Empire, as opposed to someone who's more of a hedge mage, necromancer like she is now. The mage was actually one of the elders like you see in the council chambers back in this original version of the Primalist was supposed to be someone who came from the surface and wandered into Last Refuge. So they all had very different backstories back then. But that was back, like, as I'm sure I am terrible with names. The person was saying that they played a lot back then.
Me? Daft?
Yeah, I just said you said you recall back in the game, back at the beginning, there was just a lot of caves, a lot of purple, a lot of
Yeah, everything was like the void, everything. And I remember there was just so much that happened in the beginning, and it felt like the beginning of Path of Exile when I played it, because all of it was packed into that first chapter with the first boss in every game. So it had that vibe. And even Wolson, because at the same time, yes, Wolson
I didn't bring up Wolson.
I know, I did this time. At the same time, Wolson was developing, and they had their prior version to what it became now. So both games I was playing about a month apart. I think I got Wolson early, and then about 2 weeks later came across Last Epoch, and then did the Kickstarter for that. So I was playing them at the same time, kind of went through Wolson. It was kind of like a one-shot room kind of like level, and that was it. And then Last Epoch was similar, but it was a little more expansive. There was more places you went to and came back to, and there was more skill points, and there was just more to it. And I eventually just kind of left Wolson to dry, and then it came out and it released a few years later, and I played it.
Hey, Daft, when you first played LE, did it have the passive grid?
It had
the old school passive grid.
It did have the old school one. Yeah, it did.
The square that had the square that's
we had that for a little bit. I forget when we just, it was very early on that we switched from that.
I had to think about it because it wasn't there long when I played it, but I do remember it for maybe a month or 2-3 weeks that I played it, and it was there, and then it got changed out.
Do you remember
yeah.
when also passives were vertical?
Yes.
Right? Because you used to go
Vertical for a
up.
long time.
You used to go up, not to the side.
And it was weird when it changed over. I think that's right before I joined the server, the Discord. I think, because I think it was happening at that time. Yeah. And we were talking about it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's grown a lot, and especially in the last, like, I'd say year and a half since 8.5.
It really
Like
has.
the Druid. Yeah.
Okay, Kyle,
Oh, yeah.
let's talk story. Chapter 1.
Yep.
What are the players trying to accomplish?
Alright, so for chapter 1, this is the current chapter 1 that will take you to Divine Era, and go ahead and zoom over to Electric Gifts if you don't mind.
Make it
Fine.
so, Mr. Aaron.
What am I? Wait, go to where?
Ulatri Cliffs. It's just west of Loremaster and just a little south. Yeah, right there. Yeah, so we start off in the Forest Trail because the players, each of the player classes' backstories has them leaving something behind, searching for something, just kind of being on the road in the direction of either Welrin or the Temple of Terra. Either way, they're heading east, and as they're on the Forest Trail, they see some signs of some disturbances, some Osprey soldiers kind of in the area hassling people, and that's when they come across the travelers camp, and they'll hear some more about these disturbances that are happening nearby. And as they continue their trek eastward and through the southern plateau, they come across an injured keeper who says that, oh hey, someone I know who's carrying something super important has been captured. And that leads you to the Electric Cliffs, where you find this encampment of Osprey soldiers who are serving the god Raya, and they've captured this person. You save her, and she tells you to protect the shard that she has, and after you touch it, it opens up a time rift and sends you to the future.
I don't know if I like or dislike that you got rid of the tunnel.
Yeah,
I
the tunnel-
like. No. The tunnel was good on its own, but when you have one loading screen to the next loading screen back to the same, no.
I guess the loading screen was the tunnel, right? Like it was loading the next chapter, and that would
It
be
was.
But you're right. If it's the tunnel to a loading screen, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. There was one
tunnel's
act
always
where that
been
happened.
awkward. The tunnel's always been awkward, and we've wanted to update it for a long time. And in some places we just have ditched it. I think we got rid of the tunnel there initially because we had it converted it to where it worked nicely with multiplayer again. I think we just never turned it back on because people liked it better with it off.
Because it was just quicker, right? It's
Mhm.
probably
Right. And ultimately, that's what people want.
I know. I guess I'm just
although it does look
nostalgic.
great. It looks
I'm
really
just
good.
Nostalgic.
I always thought instead of having the screen that was before it, you could just put the little quick tip on the bottom of the thing and just have that be the actual load screen itself.
It's a way to do it.
Yeah, you could do it that way. Okay.
But
So now you touch the shard, and then the portal opens up. You go into the portal.
Yeah, and you end up into a ruined future. And I'm going to go on another kind of a development history tangent here. I can't remember if this ever made it to live or not. I think it might have just stayed internal. There was a brief period where when you go through this time rift into the future, we actually put you into the Imperial era first to give players a little sneak peek at the other big headlining enemy faction out of our kind of trifecta of major threats. And for a little bit there in development, that first zone of the Ruined Era was actually an Imperial era version where you could see a war camp of Imperial soldiers over that overlook.
Interesting.
And
That's actually really cool.
And you would find a escaped human who escaped one of the little Empire's camps. If you go into a cave and when you went to rest, you would get transported again to the Ruined Era. But we ended up ditching that because the pacing of you went through the future, and then if you're just running through it a couple minutes later, you go through the future again. It was very kind of disorienting, and we were just ditching that in favor of just sending you straight to the Ruined Era, just because it felt better pacing wise. But yeah, like for a little bit there, we kind of had the idea of like, okay, so in this new beginning of the game, now that we're not starting in the Ruined Era directly anymore, let's try and give a little introduction, little sneak peek at our three main antagonistic factions: Raya, the Immortal Empire, and the Void. But yeah, we ended up ditching that Immortal Empire, the Imperial Era section because it just didn't really work pacing wise.
Got it. Okay.
And that brings us to Chapter 2, and that starts you out in the Electric Glyphs, but Ruined Era version. And here you are kind of trying to figure out what's going on. You see all this mysterious, darkness consuming everything, and very quickly you find some evacuees from this nearby city, and they see they have the shard. Like, hey, we have our shard in the council chambers. We need it. And if you have it here, that might be why things are going so bad. You need to go there like now. And that is your big push to go into the subterranean city of Last Refuge, which is humanity's last city in the Ruined Era.
Yes. But they're dying, right? Like this, they're not going to make it. They're the last city, but they're on the outs.
Exactly. Even if the Void had made like a breakthrough and started invading the city, the Last Refuge was already kind of on a ticking kind of time clock of, eventually they're going to run out of resources to sustain themselves. They're very much a, just kind of borrowed time for the most part. And the Void kind of getting in there, were just kind of, hurrying the inevitable. So you get to the council chambers and you meet Elder Gaspar, and you learn like, oh hey, if you have another shard, that's crazy. Maybe with these two shards, we can do something to beat the Void back and have a shot of one, protecting Last Refuge, and two, you getting home to wherever you're from. And that sends you to go meet, Elder Panion, who, he is gone because Elder Panion got into his head that he is going to go take their shard and go fight the Void alone because he's arrogant like that.
It cracks me up through the story. Everybody you come across, you end up having to kill later on. Whether it's in the monolith or in the campaign, you got to fight him later on. You got to fight everyone later on.
I mean, the fun thing about the monolith versions is, it's really enticing from like a development standpoint. Like, okay, we need to make a boss for this. We already have this model here that you don't fight. Well, since we have alternate timelines, let's make a fight out of this.
It's like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You can just jump and do whatever. Okay.
It works.
Yeah, it works.
It does work. It worked for them really well. Billions of dollars per movie.
Where do you actually fight the dude that takes the shard and then the Void
What's the
corrupts
dude's
him?
name?
Elder Panion.
Panion.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
In his study.
Yeah, so first you go to the study and you find that he's not there, and instead you fight his students. And after that, you start going deeper into the city. That takes you to the lower district. And that's just north of the armory. So yeah, you get to the lower district.
Right here.
Yeah. You get to the lower district, you find that it's too late. Elder Panion's getting chewed up by the Void, and it fully corrupts him, and he turns into a husk. And since he had a lot of power inherently, this husk has a lot of power as well, and that's where you fight the husk of Elder Panion. And
That was the first big fight, I think.
And
oh yeah,
Daft, didn't they remake that fight like it's like as far as visual VFX, right?
Yeah.
Yes, big time.
I'm
Yes.
trying to remember the original fight, but I don't think it originally
Had the big old dude in the spin. I mean, you might have had
Yes.
this.
I can actually give another development history story here as well. Like, I've got like a good memory for some things, and luckily stuff like this is one of these I have a decent memory for. So originally, you didn't fight the husk of Elder Panion here. Panion just died here. Instead, you fought the Omen of Silence, which was actually the name of the big void monster you fought at the end of the Kickstarter demo. So we just kind of updated that, brought that back, and that was the big void boss fighter, the Omen of Silence. And this is back in our post-Kickstarter, pre-Steam days. So, like, it looked janky, admittedly enough. It was a big, dark blob with two huge tentacles on its back.
Yeah.
And one fun
I've
gimmick.
seen that. That's in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Kickstarter video.
Mhm.
Yes.
Dude, I remember I made a kind of a fun, like, let's break down the Kickstarter video. And when I was reacting to that, I was like, what enemy is that? I've never seen that. And now I know.
So a fun story about the Omen of Silence. One, we got rid of it because it just was never that impressive. The model was super old. It really had no kind of like story to it besides just being a big void monster. But it had a really fun gimmick that we never really got across to players well enough. And this was an idea that's actually brought up by like our he's currently our lead systems architect, but they also made like 90% of the monsters in the game, and they still are a huge part in making most of the monsters in the game. And they are a genius. They have their hands in everything. But anyways, the idea that they had for the Omen of Silence from a like presentation standpoint is, I still think, is super cool, and I wish we could have done it in a way that like communicated well to the players. So originally, the Omen of Silence here would spawn in with 70% health, like it looking like it had already taken damage, and instead of dying, it would teleport away at like 30 or 50 or so health remaining. And instead of the Emperor's remains at the end of Chapter 3 in the Ruined Temple, you fought the Omen of Silence again and finish it off. It would come in with 50% health left. For a little bit, I forget if it was ever player facing or not, but in chapter 5, which isn't really chapter D, chapter 5 had a time rift in the city section that we ended up cutting, and in this time rift, you go to a ruined era version of Majelka, and that's where you'd find the Omen of Silence at full health, and it would teleport away at 70%. So that way, kind of implying that from the Omen of Silence's perspective, you fight it in ruined Majelka, then Last Refuge, and then the Temple. But for the player, you fight it first in Last Refuge, the Temple, and then ruined Majelka. But as neat of an idea as that is, and as much as we liked that idea internally, it just never really got across to players well enough to hold on to it. So
I like those types of stories because I feel like as Last Epoch progresses, as we get into cycled content, I could see, cycle 12, Omen comes back as a cycle mechanic where it is teleporting through the monolith at 70% life or 50% life, and you're trying to kill this void creature. Like, I love the idea of using old lore and things that were used to be in that have been taken out, and then you could fit it into future content.
Or the new randomness in Echoes. He could be something, his story could be you come across him in an Echo, and then he comes in another Echo, and even stronger or what have you.
That's a fantastic idea. I love that. And I'm a big fan of those sort of like not quite fourth wall breaking, but these kind of ideas that have like history with the game gonna tie into them. And one of my favorite example of that is the Forgotten Knight NPC that you find in End of Time.
I just told this story during my 1 hour pre-show.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll give the short version of it then. So, way back, we did not have the Sentinel as a class. The heavy armored kind of paladin Void Knight as class, that was the Knight. That wasn't the Sentinel. And it used to be a lady with red hair, and that was our female Knight, and she would turn into Paladin or Void Knight. And then right around the time where we first decided, we need 3rd mastery to every class. Fun fact, way back when, every class only had 2 masteries. And and tangent on a tangent, our big problem we ran into with that is sometimes, you kind of lose the base class flavor by doing that. And that's, why we decided, okay, we want a 3rd mastery for the Knight to turn into that is closer in theme to a base Knight rather than having to pick Paladin or Void Knight if you just want to be the heavy armor person. And that was originally going to be the Sentinel, and then just as iteration went on, we changed the base class's name from Knight to Sentinel and made that third mastery Forge Guard. And ended up having the big, fire, forging, blacksmithing.
If you could see the screen right now, I pulled up the initial wheel that has 2 masteries for each class, and it doesn't say Sentinel, it does say Knight.
And you run into them in the end of time.
The Forgotten Knight.
Exactly.
First person you talk to.
It's a good little Easter egg. I like that one.
And and that's why she always sounds so bitter and cynical, because she got cut out of the game.
Yes. Oh, I had a question about the cynical bitter. There was a point not too long ago where when you beat, I think it was Panion, each character would say something. The witch would say you were weak. The paladin would say, "Oh, bless you," or something to the effect. Each one had it, and I noticed recently, because I always play acolytes. It was a while. I think it was probably right before CT when I joined it that it was gone, but they took those out, and I was wondering why. All those little voice parts.
So the answer to that is, I never noticed that they weren't playing myself. I need to figure out why those aren't playing. So the answer is
there's a bug and it should be playing.
Yes.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah, so then not playing wasn't an intentional thing. It's something that I need to make an issue for now.
No, well, there you go. Yeah, I noticed it because I always giggled for a second when I heard the acolyte call him like a fool or something.
I know it's a bit early, but we do have a question from Rich. It says, I don't really understand the vision for the actual game. The last chapter seems irrelevant.
But the last chapter isn't
not
the last
chapter.
Isn't the last chapter. So
the last chapter is not the last chapter of the campaign. We as soon as we started releasing versions of the game for people to play, we've kind of done the sort of setting railroad tracks in front of us kind of a method of building out the campaign, where when we have a chunk of content ready, we give it to the players rather than kind of holding it back. And way back when we had a dozen, couple dozen, people, and we were churning out chapters, a chapter per 3 months. It seemed super cheap. Oh, we can do 12 chapters in 2 years. We pump out a chapter every 3 months. And then it turns out when your standards go up, chapters take a lot more time to make.
Right.
Because, if you compare chapter 9 to the oldest version of, say, you remember the original version of chapter 2, or chapter 4, your first dip into the Imperial era. That's our chapter with the least amount of updates at this point. It's the oldest as far as not getting substantial upgrades. We could have done it, but every chapter would be like chapter 4 and just very kind of straightforward and bare bones.
But the goal is still to 12. 12 is the completed story.
I do have a question. While you're writing out these acts, are you building a world around them, or are they being built around the world you've already built? Which one came first, the world or the story?
So
the chicken or the egg, huh?
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a back and forth on that. The original concept kind of, was, okay, so I could go on a tangent about the original kind of pitches from the story of the game before we solidified on this one, but I'll save that tangent for another time and say, so when we were first, deciding, okay, we want to go with this direction, I was we want a time travel based action RPG. We know that, one of the most popular kind of types of enemies to fight are undead, and we want these void creatures as well. So when one of the earliest versions of the story, it was just Ruined Era, Imperial Era, and Ancient Era, because we knew we wanted to go way back in time. For in the first few months of the story planning, there wasn't a plan for a Divine Era chapter. And once we realized, you know what, we want more. We want more going on. I was okay, we want to explore the time between the Ancient Era and the Imperial Era. So the Divine Era, where while the gods are still alive and the Middle Empire hasn't eaten them all. Okay, what does that look like? What does this world look like when we have these active gods all in this world? Okay, so okay, we got four gods. We got a northern one, one in the east, one in the west, one in the south. Okay, what kind of cultures would they found and be built up around them? Okay, what kind of stuff would you do if you're having to go through there and interact with them? So it really is kind of a okay, we want to do this for the story, and that means we need to make this world stuff for it. And because we made this world stuff for that, this is what story would come from that. So it's very much kind of a you pull on one end and then you're gonna pull on the other, and it just kind of goes back and forth and back and forth. So it's very much a kind of an interwoven kind of back and forth.
No,
so
that makes sense.
So yeah, there's not like a clear one came first or the other, just because with the way we're kind of like I said earlier, like putting down the train track in front of us as the train's moving, we're constantly just kind of building, in the direction we're trying to build.
Okay, we have found one shard. We have now transferred to the void area. The last refuge, city's dying. We track down the dude, kill him, get his shard.
Right.
And you go back to Gaspar and he tells you, yeah, so 2 shards isn't gonna cut it.
You need a third.
We're still dying. You're still no closer to getting back to whatever time you came from. The only hint we have left is these 2 shards are part of a larger whole, and this last shard, we think it might be in the Temple of Atera on the, east of here, on the other side of this kind of ruined valley filled with void and void cultists. And that brings you to Chapter 3, where you're no longer in the kind of subterranean underground part of the ruined era. You're now up on the surface where the void cultists are running the show, and there's void monsters just kind of roaming about, and it's just a dark, awful time. And your main goal is, okay, I gotta get from this mountain range over to the Temple of Atera and get inside of it and find this last shard. And as Aaron is showing, you see that in the ancient era, the Temple of Terror was not down on the ground; it was actually up in the air. And I know we had that question about, the story kind of, that last story chapter is kind of weird in that, doesn't progress story too much. One of the next story chapters coming up eventually is going to the ancient era, and you are going to be seeing why that temple isn't in the air anymore.
Wait.
Ooh.
Did you just say a future chapter will be in the ancient era, and it's going to explain why the city is floating? Is that what you just said?
There's your answer, Rich. Rich, there's your answer. Rich, wake up, Rich.
Less why it's floating and more why it's not floating anymore.
So you'll see.
Are these maps all hand drawn?
Yes.
They look nice.
I don't know the exact processes that our artists use for it. I imagine the mix of hand drawn, Photoshop, other tools. But yeah, I like them. I like the maps a lot.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They're, you know what? I'm gonna bring up Grim Dawn. The Grim Dawn map is not accurate. Your map is accurate. So
kudos.
Hey, and Last Epoch has a map overlay. So there's some other new games that don't have that.
I got in trouble for saying that was bad not to have one.
Red Dragons, are they redoing the story or adding to it? They continue to build upon the existing campaign and pull out old assets to put in new ones to enhance the current campaign, and they will be adding multiple chapters to the existing campaign. So a little bit of both.
It definitely is a mix of both, because we are still 3 chapters out from being at the end of the base campaign. But I mean, like way in the future, after we have those features, that we're still going to be making more story stuff. Just not, it won't be part of this kind of base 12 chapter story anymore. But it's speaking towards updating old chapter content. We are constantly looking at ways to do that. Like, some of our chapters definitely show their age more than others. For some people who've been playing for longer than others, some I remember that chapter 3, we're on the ruined surface. That used to be a bit more simple. Same with chapter 2 in Lost Refuge. For a while there, the chapter 3 segment where you're trying to get to the Temple of Atera in the ruined era, it was just a straight shot. But now we have that kind of bit of obstacle with the cultist camp in the middle, where you have to go on these kind of tangents, dealing with the dogs, dealing with the last Imperial,
Yeah.
and so we're constantly like trying to find these kind of sore points of like, oh hey, we made this 5 years ago. We have 10 times the people and however many times the resources. We can do this a lot better now.
You got that 10-cent money.
I wasn't gonna say it,
So that 10-cent money,
Be nice, guilty.
make a difference? Did it make a difference?
I mean, having more resources will always make a difference.
No, to you, the story man.
Oh,
I'm just saying that having more resources will always make a difference.
So do you have other people working on
Yes.
writing this? Awesome.
Yes, there's actually one of the terms that we've used in the past is story and quests and stuff was all just going to happen on Kyle Island for a while there.
Kyle Island.
Yeah. But now there's an actual narrative team. It's not just me anymore, and that helps unimaginably with
That's really cool, man.
being able to
Awesome.
handle things and actually
Congrats.
make things work. And thank you.
It allows you to do the macro instead of the micro as well. Like you're not
Exactly.
doing all the stuff and telling people to do. It's like, okay, guys, take care of this. Here's the ideas. Shoot it. I'll talk to you next week. You guys do that, and then you get to work on your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's still not all the way to that point, but that's what we're working towards. Eventually, it's going to point where I can go and just gonna write that book because I'm not an engine anymore.
dude, I love that. Okay, we make it to the Temple of Atera.
All right.
We kill the Temple Guardian. We get into the temple.
You start hearing these soundless voices, these mysterious
Are you
voices.
here to make me whole?
Exactly, and who knows what where these voices are coming from? They're tied to the Epoch shards, obviously, but how they're tied. That's something that you might find out once you see more history about the temple. Who knows? But eventually, you get down to the center, of the temple, and you find what's this? Something called the Emperor's Remains. I wonder how or why this guy died here. But you defeat this thing that's being puppeted by the Void. I should say, very explicitly, it's being puppeted by the Void. It's not actually the Emperor, having any will or control left. It's a host being puppeted by Void. I remember being very particular about that, and it's like concept write-up brief back in the day. Anyways, you destroy it, and boom, there's that last shard. The shards all come together. You have the Epoch prepared, and boom, you are sent to not your own time, not back to Last Refuge. You're sent to the end of time. And here in the end of time, you find out that this is what happens to all timelines.
And here's your forgotten knight.
Yeah, right.
I want to get her. I'm gonna get her a new model so bad eventually. One day we'll get her a new model. But
Speaking
anyway,
about models, we're all agreed that the Werebear is the best model in the game. Right?
Oh
it's
god.
so good.
It's
pretty damn good.
Battles other games as well. That have
It's better
bears.
than games that people think are better.
What happened to the
The game can be better. It doesn't matter, but like the model itself is super slick.
What?
No, that model
It's super
slick
slick on that one.
other Werebears.
What happened to the Forgotten Knight's leg?
So what happened is I think she's still in the animation idle pose for when she was leaning up against a pillar.
Ah,
Perfect. That's why it's like
If you can rotate the camera, you see the leg is just kind of propped up where it should be up against a pillar, and I need to change the animator on her. Oh, but yeah, we'll
don't look at that. Okay, we're in the end of time.
Don't get away. She's sensitive about it.
It's fine. It's fine.
So you get to the end of time and find out that
Okay,
hey,
let's
this is just a bunch of floating fragments floating in nothingness. There's this giant black hole in the background.
I know what the black hole is. That is the shade of Oribus's home.
I wouldn't say the shade of Orbis' home, but
Oribus's home.
Orbis might be in there. Might.
Oribus. I was told Oribus is in. I could be wrong. I don't know. I was told this is Oribus's home. I don't know.
I mean, we're going to do something cool at the black hole eventually, and we're going to have you find Orbis eventually. So, I mean, you could say 2 and 2 makes 4, but I don't want to commit to anything.
But on the UI, this is Oribus and this is Atera, right?
I would say more specifically that's Atera and the Observer.
This is the Observer?
Yes.
Which Oribus? No? All right, whatever. I don't understand.
it's okay.
It's okay.
You don't have to.
That's what I always tell everyone. I'm like, this black hole in the back is Orbis's home. I swear Mike said that once. I don't know.
Aaron, you want to know something real quick? On the pathing, one of the things Grim Dawn had, you could path somewhere that you could click and your character would just go all the way. I noticed it works on here too. There's certain areas, like especially up here, if you click the bottom floor by the gate, your character will path all the way down. I dig that. Some games will just stop you.
That's good A-star. That's really good A-star.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you guys are using A-star.
I've never watched. Okay, everybody, look, I'm up here and I want to go down here.
You just click it.
No hands. I've never. You just taught me something.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I'm not going to ask you because maybe you can't say, but I'm really sure that's A-star pathfinding.
I have no.
On my whiteboard behind me, the formula is written right here, just off screen for A-star pathfinding. One day it's going to be on screen.
So, Kyle, before we move past the end of time, our character. So I've heard this question 1,000 times. So Mike always gets asked about gender locked characters and having a male and female version of the classes. And he normally talks about how if the Sentinel has a female and a male, that means you have to make twice as many assets because it has to fit both
armors.
Both armors, exactly. So it's just more about resources and time. The question comes in, are currently classes gender locked based upon lore?
So the thing that ties down the class genders the most lore-wise is really the character introduction videos. The character introductions have the characters with their base off their models, have art of them based off the models throughout the character intros. So that is really the main thing tying down character gender from a lore sense.
So basically, if you had two intro videos, one for the male, one for the female, technically the story would be the same.
Yeah, there's really nothing about any of the character backstories that makes them inherently have to be male or female or any other, gender. Because if the mage was female, their story would still work as far as being this mentor to a student who went bad and they feel remorse over it. The primal story would still be the same if they were a big promised lady who came home from hunting and found that their village burnt down by riot. None of their stories really need them to be one gender or the other. It really comes down to just the resource scope and feasibility of putting in those different options, because character animations they're a lot of work, and fitting armor onto character models that's a lot of work. I wish Unity had a enable female model, enable male model button, but it doesn't. We could do it, but it would take a lot of resources from a lot of different departments.
And then again, that's normally Mike's message is we want to do it. We'd like to do it in the future, but it is currently not on the 1.0 roadmap. Basically.
Yeah, I'd say it'd be after 1.0 for sure. Once you got the game stable and launched the classes, all the masteries, everything.
And I know that I am alone. I know I'm alone really in this this idea of thinking that my character to me is always normally my gear. It's I see someone running around oh, that person's got a Bastion of Honor because I could see the item. I always think about D2. It's oh, that person's a Javazon. I see their Titan's Revenge.
Right.
You see some of these newer games, I'm not going to name names, and it's dude, you could change your eyebrow structure and your eye color.
Why don't you want to name games? Which game?
In an isometric action RPG, what in God's name does your eye color have to do with it? Now, I understand that in some of these games, your character is placed into the cinematics. So from a story standpoint, yes, you can sometimes see some of these characteristics, but for the most part, for me, my gear, and I guess kind of modern ARPGs, your MTX is basically how your character looks. So it's never been a big deal for me.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second here, actually, like, which is especially odd because the game I represent has even less options than the game we're not naming, as far as like character model choices.
Game that should not be made.
What game? What game is that?
So to play devil's advocate, like even if you don't see the way your character model looks, and like you don't get to see like the shape of your eyebrows or like the color of your eyes.
Can you shave your pubic hair too?
Just keep going,
Is
Kyle.
that
Don't
something
listen
wrong?
to Guilty.
So I was gonna say like even if you can't see it during active gameplay, like when you make the character in the character creator, you kind of get that mental image in your mind of like this is what my character looks like underneath all that, and like for some players they just can have that kind of like, oh, underneath all this is what the face looks like, kind of in the back of their minds while they're playing, and that means something for some players.
I
Yeah,
will
one of
say,
those players.
I will say I've said it for 3 straight podcasts, and Guilty always gets mad at me because he's like, who cares? In Diablo 4, the color you make your hair, if you turn into a werebear, that is the color of your fur.
I wanted to make a joke about, oh, that's the game we're talking about, but I was thinking earlier, like, I made a druid in Diablo 4, and I gave her green hair. I was like, oh, I'm going to do a whole like, nature theme, and then my werebear animations had green fur. I was like, oh, this doesn't look as good as I was going to look.
Now it's like a green. Yeah, that's true. You should have made it white. Then you could have like a polar bear.
Oh, yeah.
Polar
Okay.
bears are great.
Polar bears are great, but pandas are better. All right, I'll say it before you did.
Yes. Yeah. You
Okay,
did.
Kyle, we are now in the Temple of Eterra, and it is time for us to venture out.
So you got to the end of time after reforging the Epoch, and this is where you find out that every timeline is fated to shatter like this and leave nothing but these kind of floating rocks and nothingness that themselves are going to be consumed by nothingness before too long. And you find out, like, hey, this is going to happen to every timeline, and it's because the void was unleashed, and once the void is unleashed, that's kind of it for that timeline. But because of information gathered from, multiple travelers who have come and gone and done this many times, because you are one version of the traveler in a kind of infinite sea of them, Gasper gives you the kind of breadcrumb of, we have reason to believe that the void entered the world and was unleashed in the Imperial era, and the party most likely responsible is the Immortal Empire in their pursuit of power. So your new task is, okay, I'm going to go to the Imperial era, track down the Immortal Emperor, and stop them from doing whatever they're doing, because it seems that right as the Imperial era is ending, that's when the void was unleashed on the world and the Ruin era begins.
So the idea is that if we could stop that evil empire, maybe the void will never come to be.
Exactly. And that is what the player is working on at this moment, and that brings them to the Outcast Camp, which is the kind of main base of the living rebels who are living in opposition to the Immortal Empire. The Immortal Empire being this empire of undead humans who all serve their emperor, who has given them all the gift of undeath and immortality using divine power that he obtained from dead gods that he slew. And your adventures here, for which involve a lot of there's a contact you can meet.
And this is chapter 4.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And this is chapter 4, and your main goal is, okay, the outcasts have an agent who believes he can get you into the Immortal Citadel where the Emperor is, but he's captured by Harton, who is one of the generals of the Empire, and the Ulrich is trapped on the ship in Harton's custody. So you have to go to Admiral Harton's dreadnought and break him free.
So I have a question about this.
Yes.
The whale. What's the significance of the whales on either side of the boat?
The significance of the whale is that there's not a huge significance. We just wanted to make that scene have a little more going on, like sound and visuals wise, and to make the Empire feel a bit more cool.
Because that's how I initially heard it, was the whale sounds. I didn't see it initially, and I found the southern one first. Like when I was playing, I was like, what? And I went down there, I was like, oh, okay, there's some whale things going on.
Yeah, this is one of those kind of like magic moments that comes about with like this kind of like, we have a very kind of like, I was gonna say well, there's a lot of freedom in a lot of departments to just kind of like pitch an idea and for people to go, yeah, let's do that. Like, I believe it was our lead level designer who was updating the 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 top half of the dreadnought, and he put in some whales. And
Okay.
he like shared some screenshots of his progress. They're like, "Oh yeah, I caught some whales that have been harpooned," and as everyone's like, "Yes, we love that." And our lead sounders are like, "Hey, I can add some whale noises to that," and went in and did that, and everyone's like, "Yes, we love this." So
Yeah.
it's just one of those kind of magic moments that happens with a
Okay.
team that's open to collaboration and open to
It was a
experimenting.
looks cool, not lore driven.
Yeah, the whales are very much a looks cool kind of motivated addition there, where I like what it does for the story in that this is one you're still fairly early in encountering the Mole Empire. Like it's just still like the prime kind of point in like the story beats to kind of communicate the Mole Empire being cruel, not valuing life, being very exploitative of things that are living, and showing these whales that are harpooned or just being dragged by this giant ship. I was like, man,
Right.
that's a perfect way to kind of sell the cruelty of the Mole Empire is super okay with.
That's kind of the vibe I picked up when I was trying to figure out, like, what is this here for? Like, is it pulling the boat? No, they're not pulling the boat. And, it's just kind of like eye candy. And like you say, it was just something there that you could notice and not really understand and not have
to. It's a sell that the Mole Empire is cruel towards living things. And I think they do a decent job there.
Yeah, it works out.
So that's like a
I think either my connection's going bad or someone else's is, because I think everyone's frozen now.
Oh no.
I see them moving.
Yes.
Refresh your browser.
But there's a comparison to Conan here. Snake Man, James Earl Jones, was cruel to everybody. So there's some questions I have later on. There's some stuff that seems to be maybe influenced by 1980s cinema, and I want to see how true that is.
I'm excited for this question because it could either be true or it could be a very I don't know, metaverse accidentally kind of thing.
I hope some of it's true. I really do.
Okay, I am on the Dreadnought's deck. Somebody asked earlier whose voice is like bellowing as you run through here. Is there a voice that
I was about to say the voice might be news to me because I don't recall there being a voice bellowing while you're running through here.
Not until you get close and he just cocks to you for a second.
Yeah, he his boss aggro line kicks in.
The only place I know where there's lingering voices was the Terra Temple.
Yeah.
Right before the end of time.
Somebody asked earlier, and I'm like, oh, by the way, I love this level with the fog and the lights.
Oh yeah, the lighting was the lighting changeover being one of the changes that came in fairly hot toward the 0.9 release. And I remember when it went in, everyone was like, "Oh, this looks amazing." There's a funny couple of test patches leading up to that where the bloom on the fog was just crazy. You come into the scene and it would just blind you immediately. It was really fun.
Yeah, maybe they're thinking the whale sounds could be the voices, because you do hear them when you get close to the top or bottom.
The whale.
The whale's talking to you.
All right, where are you?
So you're on the deck, and you're here to rescue Ulrich, who is the person that the Outcast Queen pointed you towards, can help you get into the Immortal Citadel. And this is a character you've already gone through this with, so which means you should be able to just go straight to the railing after you beat Harden and jump off. But yeah, you beat Harden, you free Ulrich. It tells you to make a run for it and leap off the railing. And because you've already done that, you don't get the little icon there pointing towards it. They should still be able to interact with it, and boom.
And we're off.
I thought we updated that loading screen. And that might be coming soon.
This right here, this is the Shining Cove, is my favorite recording spot for Last Epoch videos.
I now know this, but I knew that without knowing it.
If you ever watch my videos and I'm doing an intro or I just need a backdrop, it is normally right here because the lighting is good, it's bright, the water, the shipwreck. It's like my favorite recording spot. Anyways, my lore. That's.
I mean, what's funny about that is this zone wasn't originally planned. It was actually planned that this chapter 5 would start. I forget at the very beginning of the next scene still has that little bit of beach to the very left-hand side of the screen at the beginning of it. But there was a time where that was the beginning of chapter D, and it was just like this one little chunk of beach. And we decided, no, we want more of a beach section, and we ended up putting in this zone to kind of get more beach in there, and it kind of extend the beginning part of this chapter so we don't get to Magenta quite so fast.
It's like a PoE chapter 1, but bright.
I remember giving. I remember we gave the lead level designer references to PoE so many times for this. Hey, we want a beach that's like that with the wrecked ships. Just want it in daytime and kind of deserty and bright. So yeah, you get here, you talk with Ulrich briefly, and you find out you guys are separated from any of the other outcasts, and you're the.
Yeah, what are you trying to do here? This is chapter 5.
Yes.
I do have a question. As far as this goes, if you're playing in a group, right, and you're running through the campaign, are there any changes you have planned for group play in the campaign? Like any story things, it changes from you to they, maybe?
We don't have anything like that planned. We don't have anything like that planned. We want to kind of keep the experience while you're playing solo versus in a group as kind of as much parity as possible.
Okay.
That way you can kind of slide seamlessly from solo play to group play. That's the ideal, anyways. We want to have the least amount of barriers to playing with your friends as possible, and the least amount of kind of hiccups from switching from solo to with a group as possible. So doing stuff where the story changes slightly if a group would, I imagine it'd be feasible, but it'd be kind of tricky to. I imagine we'd probably put a condition on a lot of the conversations to kind of trigger a variant that has vase for referring to as a group. I could see a way of doing it, but I can see it also being very finicky.
Yeah. Okay. So now we are here,
Yes.
chapter 5. Where is there any plans for, I hate to say it, the Diablo chapter 2, and it's a fiery number 2, and it's
Chapter intro type thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
So we do have some plans for adding in some better presentation to the chapter breaks, and just some more little more cinematic-esque kind of bits like that here and there. Originally we did talk about them being on every chapter break, but we kind of backed off from that in favor of putting them more so in spots that really benefit from having a little bit of a boom, a little extra presentation with some
Mike has teased during his Friday live streams that for 1.0 full launch, there's going to be lots and lots. He didn't say every, but he almost made it seem like almost every cinematic and intro, all that stuff is going to be new, and there's going to be a lot more coming.
Oh, good. He's already talked about this, so I don't have to be getting around the bush so much. Okay,
Yes.
So we were working on some little 2.5D cinematics to kind of intersperse throughout the campaign. I was trying to be a little vague there. Okay, good.
Yes, he's already said that there's tons of new cinematics, because that question came up because obviously with the playtest of Diablo 4, it has these literally movie theater quality cinematics, and people are asking if 11th Hour Games wants to do, not copy Diablo, but have their own version of cinematics. And he said
Please don't copy Diablo.
He said there's a ton coming for 1.0.
Yeah, we have a lot in the works. I can't give an exact number on them, but yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, some of them will be positioned to be on chapter breaks, probably most of them are, but there will also be some that aren't. We're really just gonna targeting for points that can really benefit from that sort of little splash and extra presentation. So we have some of those planned. They're just very much in the works right now, very much in the they are in progress as it gets right now.
And where would it say this is chapter 5?
I could thinking
Yeah,
about
good.
the
Yeah, please.
thinking about the right now as in current. I think if bringing the quest log, it would say that if this was your most progressed quest. But
I don't know. I mean, well, it's actually kind of sad. I haven't beaten all the characters level 97. Daft's gonna get mad at me.
Yeah,
I've got all the idle slots and passive rewards. That's what matters.
Good. Yeah, normally if you're going through the campaign like on a fresh character, there should be like the location notifications. There should be chapter notifications when you first enter like the first scene of whichever. It should pop up with a chapter so and so, and then the name of the chapter. So those are probably too easy to miss at this point. And I think we have talked about adding in more blatant, like little chapter splashes to these cinematics. But
I think that would be good. I do think. Yeah. I think I
think they're included. I don't think they're included in any of these stories. But as long as I might go back and kind of talk about getting those worked in. But yeah,
okay, let's go story wise. We're now chapter 5. We've beaten the Immortal Empire, correct?
Not quite. You just beat up Haran and freed Ulrich, and Ulrich is going to help you get into the Immortal Citadel so you can try and fight the Immortal Emperor. But the problem is you are stranded way out here, and you're just outside of Majelka, which is one of the Immortal Empire's biggest strongholds. And the only way to get on the other side of Majelka without dying is to, be extra careless for a second and go in to meet up with an ally of Ulrich named the Oracle. So yeah, you travel through the desert, you get into Majelka, you get through some of the sigils and wards that the Oracle has put up to defend her little boat, her little sanctuary for the living who still live in Majelka, and you go and meet her, and she gives you permission to kind of travel into the catacombs of Majelka that she kind of guards the entrance to. And that is how you get to the other side of Majelka.
Quick question on this guy. Any chance we actually get a little fruit from him?
We should have a fruit item.
Like, because you talk to him and he's like, it tastes like crap or whatever, but you get a physical thing and it could have like a little lore on it or.
Once we have actual quest rewards where you get a little UI panel, we can actually select a quest reward. I would love to add that to this guy so he can offer you fruit. But
I've literally never talked to this person ever, Daft. I don't even know what the hell you're talking about until now.
This guy's purpose is to, show that, hey, it's not just a bunch of scary skeleton monsters that are causing stuff to be bad in this era. Just the necrotic kind of pollution to everything is making even just their produce not just healthy or vibrant anymore. There's also a little bit of a Chrono Trigger reference right there.
Mm-hmm. You never saw that, Aaron? Goodness. I could have done the lore thing for you.
So
he could have schooled me on lore.
Being left in the really early on in the game, first town, I think.
The first, it's literally the first zone has the backpack by the campfire.
Is that you?
Oh, yeah.
Was that you?
Oh no, that was the lead level designer for sure.
Oh well.
I think that's not lore driven. It's just an Easter egg. I don't think
it's world building.
Yeah, the lead level designer sneaks things in all the time. Like people have been asking what's up with those secret. Actually, no, pretend those don't exist. Never mind.
Oh, I've been talking about those little like hidden zones. The other day in Discord, I showed a picture of one of the hidden creatures, the Bell guy, the Bell
brother Bartholomew.
Bell brothers.
That was another thing that our just a lead level designer just. I'm going to make this here. I'm going to hide the interest to it. And like, oh, wow. Okay. That's cool.
No, yeah. This is funny stories. The level designers will put in secret areas without telling people and then they just get found. I love that. I hope Judd doesn't get mad at that stuff.
Yeah, but there are the secret areas that look huge. Well, not huge, but there's two sections. There's like a section where you walk around it like a gap and there's another gap and there's some chests. Obviously, it feels like something may eventually be there, but they've been in the game for such a long time now. So I'm curious what ends up happening with those. There's been
something.
Who knows?
Something may happen with those eventually. I'm not gonna talk any more about on.
Yes.
I'll let those stay a mystery for now.
Okay, chapter 5. We've gone through the oracles, or the oracle's given us passage.
And that takes you to the other side of Majorca, and your best shot at getting to the Immortal Citadel quickly before they can, really, catch you, is through the Majorca way station, where they're building an artificial waypoint. Because one of the fun things that we kind of decided on way early on is the waypoints are technically canon, whereas in a lot of games, waypoints are just kind of ignored. The waypoints are actually acknowledged in the setting as this kind of pre-ancient technology that no one quite knows how they work, but the Mortal Empire, being as ambitious and greedy as they are, they're trying to make some of their own that are just brute forcing them into working by just pumping as much soul energy into them as possible, just gonna make teleportation happen, trying to copy these ancient waypoints. And that's why you're here, to kind of take advantage of that, to get teleported to right outside of the Immortal Citadel. And that's what this thing is right here. The Immortal Empire is kind of attempt at creating their own version of a waypoint.
Gotcha.
And fun, like early story draft tidbit. Originally, Orc was going to die there.
Oh.
Instead, he died a little later.
That's actually kind of cool, man.
Originally, he was going to power the artificial waypoint with his own soul to kind of give the last little kick it needs.
That's cool.
But we ended up cutting that because we wanted you to have like more than just Yulia through chapter 6, because when it was just Yulia, it just kind of felt awkward and weird. It's like just you're believing her with no one there to back you up. So you ended up kind of delaying his death a little bit. But yeah,
so we are now in chapter 6.
Yes.
I do have a question. The Emperor,
Yes.
King Skeletor, are you going to what kind of changes might we see in the next 3 to 5 chapters?
When you say changes, could you?
Because he changes every time we see him to an extent.
Oh, as far as like updating how he looks.
Well, aesthetics and the way he acts. He's progressively, I guess, more evil. The way you
Daft, what is Guilty talking about?
I'm trying to think of the other times you see the Mortal Emperor. I think you just see him at the end of chapter 6.
You see him. No, you see him, and he's a giant skeleton man, and you have to escape him. He's Skeletor, and you have to run away from him. And then there's a bit of lore. You're given the impression that this is like the ultimate evil, like James Earl Jones. He's James Earl Jones.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Aaron, take a sidestep here. So James Earl Jones, Skeletor, is evil. How much more of him are we going to see?
So one of the planned future chapters that is going to come out beyond what we already have, one of those last 3 chapters is going to be dealing with going back to the Imperial era and actually fighting the Mortal Emperor.
Fantastic.
For realsies. And another spoiler, you will get explicit kind of confirmation of who the Mortal Emperor was when they were alive before that point.
Yes.
I'm not gonna say who they were now, but it does get a hard.
They'll no longer be the puppet that is controlled by the void. You'll actually see the actual Immortal Empire.
Yes.
Emperor,
and,
yeah.
And you will fight him by the end of the planned campaign chapters.
Will he still be a giant skeleton?
When you fight him, yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Is the plan of the character development, like level 100, in line with the 12 chapters?
So that's something I've kind of wondered about, but that's something that
that's a pretty damn good question, actually.
Yeah, that's really, I would say that's more of like a gameplay thing. That's something that I would like. That's something that, like, I'd say our lead systems architect has their eyes more so on. So I imagine we'll have to adjust like the
I
level
hope
pacing
not.
of certain things.
Dude, 12 chapters and it takes you 100 levels to get there. I would blow my freaking brains out playing the campaign.
You do it still.
Oh my gosh.
Like, yeah, I can't say I am personally aware of what the plans are for adjusting the level pacing with the addition of the chapters beyond chapter 9.
Right.
I imagine we might do something, or it might just stack up higher. I honestly don't know that kind of level of kind of nitty gritty on the gameplay. So I mean, I usually don't have my own hands in that much anymore.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
a portion of us, I'll say real quick, will leave the campaign at like level 26 or 27
What portion do you think that is, Dev?
and go straight to the monos
For a long time,
and then
we
go
were,
back to the campaign.
Yeah, for like a long, I forget how long we had the entrance to the model blocked off until you complete the campaign.
Yeah.
I forget when we unblocked that, and we've talked briefly about like turning that block back on.
You don't have to.
Still, I mean in all honesty, that's probably what's going to happen. Is we're just going to leave it unblocked, but we've talked occasionally.
You can't
about,
put that genie back in the bottle. That
Well,
one's out.
It's
You
funny
can't
how
do
Aaron's
it.
often-
right.
It's funny
You
how
have to
often
keep
that
it.
exact. Oh, go ahead.
I think leaving it unlocked is good, but
Yeah.
requiring
don't
you to
even
go
know.
through the campaign to get your idols and passive points. Like,
That's-
yeah, you could go straight to end game, but at some point
Okay.
you're gonna have to go back.
Right.
So we've got something to compare to, and maybe our lore master can spread the word.
gosh.
There are other games where you can complete the campaign one time and not have to do it again.
They've already said that's not gonna happen. You can
They
skip.
can rethink it because
No.
they might need to.
EHG is going to put easier campaign skips through dungeons. So they're gonna revamp
Mario
how
whistle?
dungeon skips work. But you will still have to play the dungeons to do them.
So the Mario whistle is still a thing.
Yes.
It's funny because we actually did reference the Mario Whistle when we were first planning. Oh, we can use these new campaign skips to make replaying the campaign a little easier on people. So it's funny. We actually
That's
did
my
literally
thing. I
reference
call it the
Whistle.
Mario whistle. Guilty stole that one.
Through many meetings and yes, yeah, I stole.
Anyways,
So yeah, like the topic of like how can we make all characters minimize the pain points of that comes up in game design meetings fairly often, not uncommonly, and we don't have a hard set plan of any changes to how we're handling that, but it does come up in conversation every once in a while, so it's still actively talked about. So.
If you were to approach people and say, hey, maybe just make them play it once.
oh gosh.
I could see, I mean, like, realistically, since it's a cycled game, maybe something to the effect of every cycle it resets.
This is not
and
what Kyle
Inquisitor.
is here for.
He's not here for
I
that.
know.
I-
I'm just saying, Inquisitor does that.
I mean, what I advocate for is just putting in a new game plus mode where you just go straight to the final boss with
Oh.
the character.
That's awesome.
That's why
Yes.
I pitch sometimes. It never gets much traction, but
Well, if there's a vote, I vote for that.
I haven't played this part of the campaign, so I'm running through it. But feel free to talk through
so
chapter
this,
6.
Yeah, so this part is you are just outside of the Immortal Citadel. You still need to, trek it on foot to actually get in there. You have a new ally here named Yulia, who says that she is a traitor to the Immortal Empire because she doesn't like what she's kind of reduced the people who, like the people in the Immortal Empire, they were all human originally, and they were all promised this sort of like, hey, you're all immortal now. We overthrew the gods. We are, in charge of our own destinies now. We all conquered death. None of us have to die anymore. This is great. But it turns out, oh, hey, inequality still happens. There's not enough soul juice to keep people actually animated around, to go around. And you get these, even worse disparity and cruelty and everything. And she's like, man, I regret helping build this, and I want to help you take out the Immortal Emperor. So she is helping you get through the sewers and the Necropolis, which is kind of like this slums of the Immortal Citadel. And you get up to the actual Immortal Citadel and find the Immortal Emperor. You have a rematch with Haran and Zarek, the generals who, you've encountered before. Also, Yulia, reveals that, oh, she betrayed you and lured you into a trap, but it turns out it was a double...
Yeah.
It's a double betrayal because she was actually just tricking the Emperor to get his guard down because she thinks you have the Lance of Hera and are ready to stab him. But you don't. because she thought you had already met her in the past, but you haven't, because time travel is complicated like that. So
Yeah.
you
Hold on, wait a second. So you fight Harton and the worm, and after you
Right.
fight both of them,
And Julia.
Yes. So
yes.
Julia freezes him in place temporarily and tells you to use a lens of Hierot to, stab him and take him out. You go, what are you talking about? I don't know what that
the
is.
way he's pronounced, the name's pronounced, Hierot?
Yeah.
I've been saying it right. I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
You have been saying it right.
Yeah.
Good job.
But yeah, she says to use the lens of Hierot, and you're like, what is that? And she's like, wait, you don't know about the plan? And you're like, what plan? And she's like, oh no, this is bad. And she buys you some more time as you take the portal from the Epoch back to the Divine era.
To the
And that takes you-
divine era.
We have a comment from a viewer. Replacing the campaign over and
Oh,
over
gosh.
for alts becomes old really fast. Now my alts, I don't really face Lagan anymore. I have my quest map, and after I get my idle slots and passives, I move straight to monoliths.
That's what everybody does. You could skip Lagan by going through the freaking temporal sanctum.
Right. So
Okay.
That's the
Guilty. Okay, divine era.
Divine era. So
Chapter
It's beginning-
7.
yes. So that spits you right in the kind of outskirts of Solara, which is the big old capital of Raya. You go down the mountain and you end up right smack dab in a battle between Raya's forces and Hierot's forces, and you actually find.
Is it Hyboria? Hyboria? How do you say?
yeah.
I always say Heoboria.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, Hioboria.
Heoboria? Okay. All right.
Yeah, Hioboria.
Thank you.
Hey, yo, Boria.
Hioboria and Hioborians.
Dude, why does
That
he
also
get
feels-
smoked so easily?
Because he is a defender, not a killer.
The best part is
Shouldn't
when you
that mean he
stand.
doesn't get smoked easily.
Because, well, he has split his power more than Raya has. Raya is very much selfishly guards his power. Hira
Right.
has divvied his up between helping the humans in Hioboria for centuries and centuries. He has a son in Mortis who has a portion of his power that is just trapped way up in Farwood and is just spiked up there. So Hira, doesn't have all the power he originally would have had if all the gods were back at their inception.
It does.
Raya is way more kind of aiming to kill, and
okay.
has all his power still just kind of undiluted.
I would
do
say
have questions.
I know, one second.
Aaron
I'm
does too.
hoping that future, more financially successful, even than it already is last Epoch, remakes that cinematic
Yes.
for the future.
We have some mock-ups internally. We've been playing around
That's what
with
I
new
wanna
versions
hear.
of it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Some of the, I guess, criticism from us and us. When we see the space antelope, deer, man, pig, bear thing, we don't know why we care. Now, I'm assuming that you have something really elaborate set up for a cutscene. Or maybe
Or it's
introducing
explained
him
later in the game.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, or either later in the game, prior, something. But that thing is really cool, and it should have a an impact on when it dies. I should feel that.
Yeah,
What?
I was just gonna say, for instance, I was just playing a Lich, and I stood right. I'd seen the cinematic, so I stood right next to him, and he gets blasted, and I'm standing there. I'm like, "What's wrong?" It just feels like what Guilty's saying. It just feels like he just kind of seems super important, but then he just dies, and
Yeah.
the guy takes off, and he leaves you there, like just whatever.
Yeah, at the time, that was one of our most ambitious in-game events. But that was also
Yeah.
if you compare the kind of the structure of chapters and the kind of quality of presentation, it's right around the very, very end of chapter 6, and more so chapter 7, that you can kind of really feel us going, okay, we need to spend more time on the chapters. We need to do more. We need to make the presentation better. We need to.
The level design in Hyboria is good.
Yeah, very good, fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of the kind of unimpressive elements of the Herod event is kind of sort of like, this is one of the first attempts at really kind of trying to push the bar on that sense and go like, hey, let's increase our quality bar higher than we ever have before. And that was a good, like, what, 3, 4.
Okay, so what is, I'm so sorry, say one more time. This is chapter 7, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and what is the main purpose of this chapter? What is really happening?
So the main purpose is your overarching main goal is still to stop the Mortal Emperor because you believe that he is the one responsible for unleashing the Void. And your last kind of clue on that was, okay, their main ally who was teeing you up to take him out said, you need the Lens of Herod. And she says, you don't have it? Okay, go in the past, find me, and get that Lens of Herod. So if and however you come back, you can do this. So now you're in the Defiant Era trying to get the Lens of Herod and get it to work so you can go back to the Imperial Era to take out the Mortal Emperor.
Got it.
And the first kind of step of that is getting embroiled in this whole conflict between Hyboria and Raya. And as we see, Herod get got, and you get the kind of breadcrumb. Okay, so the Lens of Herod, we know where that is. That's way up in the Tomb of Mortis. But to get there, you need to go and do some stuff. You need to get this blessed horn from the nomads, and you got to travel through the Temple of Herod, to travel through Farwood, and
it's a fetch quest. You're right. I mean,
it is a fetch quest, but this is like kind of talking about kind of going back to like, okay, this is around when we started kind of reevaluating how we structure quests. If you look at chapters 4, 5, and 6, they're all very kind of straight shots. You get your main objective and you just kind of go. And it's right around here they realize like that's not really that satisfying. This is kind of the point where like, okay, we can churn these out in like 3 or 4 months each, but if we do that for the rest of the campaign, it's not gonna be good. So this is where we go, okay, we need to have, you have your goal here. We need to have some sort of obstacle to make you go off the beaten path so it doesn't feel so, okay, you've got...
And you do notice that in the last chapter, it is literally a straight line, 5 areas, beginning to end, done. And then you get here at chapter 7, and it's more circular. You've got different paths and different areas to go.
You can tell design changed throughout level building. However, moving into the later chapters, you guys did a really good job with that. So,
I mean, most of the props for like level design goes to Rick, our lead level designer, and Fritz. Rick and Fritz are great.
I had a quick question. I forgot to ask it while we were there. Aaron, if you could go back to the Necrotic, chapter 2. I was curious about I just can't remember the name of the zone. Go to Imperial.
Oh yeah, no, Ruined, right? Chapter 2.
Chapter 2 would be Ruined, but
stuff
would be Imperial Era.
And then go up towards where right before Parton, that little ship area. It's
with the pirate.
It's just a little docks. The Darkling, right there. Go east a little, Aaron. The path right before that one. Right before the Imperial Dreadnought. That map.
Right before this map. Here.
The Darkling.
The Darkling Pier.
Yeah. So that map, every time I get there, seems kind of awkwardly pointless because it's really short. I was curious if it was just...
No, that's Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. They took Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and put it in the game.
Because you run on the thing and there's a pier and you're there for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and then you go into the boat.
Yeah,
He's already talked about that the level design back then
I know,
was fast.
That's what I'm asking if that is like, yeah.
I will say that like that is like, it's kind of a... I hate to use the term like Band-Aid, but like originally you would get to the end of this section, Imperial Fatima, and
Right.
you just kind of be like at the edge of the zone, and then boom, you're inside of a ship. And I was like, that doesn't feel like you actually
Sure.
transitioned into a ship. That felt very awkward. So one of the kind of improvements
You needed a pier area because the pier would be on a ship. That actually
Makes sense. Yeah, it
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
and because of something we just kind of added in, like it's like, okay, what can we add here? Do we want to fill it with enemies?
Oh, look,
Instead
I'm
of
now
just
on a pier
replacing-
and you could see the door and it's right there.
Yeah, it's really just there for like to make the transition from coastal city to.
That's where I grew up.
ship
What are you
feel.
talking about?
and also in general, this is also when the lead level designer was kind of experimenting with this aesthetic, because you got a few more props to play with, and you kind of like I got a lot of cool nets, and I think this is around when we're making chapter 8 actually.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember the actual timeline to this. I think this might have been around where we're making chapter 8, which is filled with this kind of stuff.
I will say, I feel it's so. I never notice this stuff. I don't know how Daft even gives a crap or notices. Anyways, it is weird. It is interesting that the pier is right here, but the ship is way out here. Like in the,
ships can move, my dude.
Yeah, exactly. He's right. Because the implication is that once you get on the ship, it leaves the port and starts moving. So by the time you're actually
so you're
on
on
zone,
a floating ship that is not docked anymore.
Ships
Exactly.
float.
It's true facts. True facts.
I've learned something. The ships can float.
But yeah, so the implication is essentially that it was docked when you were on the pier, but once you got onto it, it's set off and is now on the ocean. And it is something that we have kind of thought back and forth on how we can improve getting across that you're on a moving ship. And that's probably one of the reasons why we have the whales now, is because they gotta get it across whether you're on open waters and moving.
Right, that's where you probably throw in a little cutscene that you get off the pier, and then some cutscene like happens, and the whales pull the boat, or and it breaks away, and all of a sudden you're gonna go kill him.
So you end up at the Temple of Herat, right?
Yes, and this is after you get that horn, so you get access to it, and even then, this is still a transitionary kind of area. You're trying to get past the temple into Farwood, which is this guarded forest up in the very kind of northern part of the world, because in Farwood is the tomb of Moritus, which has the Lance of Herat hidden within it, and that's even further north than what you have on the map there.
Where is that? Oh, up here, right?
Yeah, it's above the temple, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a portal at the end of the temple that takes you to Farwood, and deep in Farwood is this giant tree, which is where Mortitus, Herat's son, who rebelled against him centuries ago, is entombed and imprisoned and kind of kept contained by having the lance of Herat pierced through him. And this is where you meet Grail, and you and Grail begin your adventures. And so you go through here, and you fight the warrior that is keeping Mortitus, imprisoned. There's like a former champion of Mortitus named Yeroon. But more importantly, you get that lance out. Mortitus starts to slowly thaw to act as a product of future content sometime in the future. And more importantly, you and Grail now have the lance of Herat, but it needs the blessings of the gods to be powerful enough to kind of do its job of taking out a deity level being.
So now that you have the lance, okay, that
It's
takes
time
you
to
to
go to the
chapter
beach.
8. Chapter 8.
Yep, time to go to chapter 8. You get some last words with Herat. He gives his blessing to the lance and tells you, okay, to be able to use this against Raya, and for you to be able to, after that, take it to use against the Mortal Emperor, you need the blessings of the other gods, which are Lagan and Majasa. And the first one you're hitting up is Lagan over on the Western Sea.
Okay, so this is really elaborate. What did you use as a source or an inspiration, if anything, for this?
So a lot of it is just from so many fantasy stories and games and everything throughout my childhood and just my life in general. So many settings have boom, these four big gods, these four kind of like either like elemental themed beings or like cardinal direction themed beings, and I've always really liked that. So I kind of went with that with a myriad of different kind of influences on each individual one. Like Heorot, the name itself comes from the lodge at the beginning of Beowulf, kind of getting a bit of that kind of like
Oh, that's old. Wow.
yeah, it's kind of getting that kind of like old English Celtic kind of feel there.
Isn't that the first? That's the first English book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's old. Wow.
Yeah, and Mortis, his name is a pretty blatant reference to Mordred, who is in Arthurian, like King Arthur mythology. Arthur's son who betrays him. Raya is a kind of a mix of Ra from Egyptian mythology and Yahweh from Judeo-Christian mythology. Kind of give that kind of big kind of powerful kind of sun deity thing going there. Lagon's a funny one because the attention there was it's a mix of Dagon, the like Mesopotamian like ocean god, and Ladon, a sea serpent from Greek mythology. But like a ways after putting that together, I realized like, oh, it's just Lagoon without an extra O. Despite me going into it with, oh, it's a mix of Dagon. It's a mix of Dagon and Ladon, these two big mythological figures. Oh, it's Lagoon, cool. Right? Oh, I guess it is, isn't it?
Am I out of my gourd thinking that's very Cthulhian?
I mean, it's a big part of that is the fact that like Lovecraft actually pulled directly the name Dagon for one of his big like Cthulhu mythos creatures.
True. Yes.
Yeah, and I remember go ahead.
So chapter 8 takes us to Lagon, and now we're in Isle of the Storms, right?
Exactly. There's a small kind of hiccup where like, okay, Lagon has a chief servant named Architect Leath. Maybe we can get her help with talking to Lagon about his blessing. She stonewalls who's super bad. Don't you go like, no, you're not going to talk to him because I need to be the one who mediates every communication to and from Lagon. She's very kind of like order-minded. That's because Lagon is very chaotic-minded, and if she wasn't kind of mediating all the information that goes to and from him, there would be way more storms and shipwrecks and just chaos all across this region because Lagon is impulsive and chaotic and a little childish, very, very kind of capricious. He's very much an unpredictable kind of like sea storm-esque kind of being. And that's why Leath is very intense on.
And this is the first part of since this was the end of the campaign. Obviously before we got the last chapter, so this is where the first time we see choice, right? As far as killing her or not killing her.
Oh, that's
correct?
In the modeled version, actually.
Oh, got it.
Okay. Yeah, the modeled version. That's how you get the branch split. There is choosing to kill her or not kill her.
Oh, somebody I've seen in Discord, someone mentioned that when you finish an echo and there's the dialogue that gives you choices, there are people who don't even realize they're picking a choice because they just flash through it.
Oh,
like for 1-1-1-1 or whatever, because they just do that. So they were like, how come you're on the higher level echo and I'm on 64? Well, because I picked 2, which is the future. And
you think there should be a double check? Are you sure you want to make this choice?
Yeah. Honestly, what it should be is we should probably just take it out of the dialogue system period and have it be its own UI panel. But that's it's something that we'd have to like look at and go, okay, what is the best way to do this from a UX perspective? And my gut tells me that it should just be its own UI panel you select from. But like at the time, like it's very much, okay, let's have this happen as part of this quest, which means it should happen through the dialogue system. We found out how to change the color of the text, and we got we try to make it as like explicit and obvious as possible in the text, but people will click through no matter what. So
do you know how many times I click through it all the time, like, damn it, I don't even know which one I hit.
Yeah. Like, I will say we don't have any active plans for updating that, but that is something that we'll, I definitely will bring up whenever we're talking about, okay, let's get some UX passes on some of this stuff, because having it be its own UI panel would be fantastic. Just
by the way, poor Mike gets beat up every Friday about this fight. Like, why can my minions not target Lagon? Why is Smite can't target Lagon? Why is this?
we went into making that fight thinking, oh, plenty of games have the boss that's too big to be on arena, just hanging on the side. I mean,
Yeah.
surely it can't be that hard to make work right. Turns out it's incredibly hard to make work right. Turns out we've had some ideas of how to kind of restructure that fight to make it a bit, a bit less painful quality of life, wise. But I can't really go into detail on any of those things.
No, I know.
But we're going to land on them.
No, that's fine.
He just
Anyway,
always says it used to be a lot worse and now it's better and it's going to continue to get better. That's basically what he says.
It's not a loot thing. It's a chapter, which way you go decision. So if you're going to the higher level echoes or the lower.
Okay, so you go to Lagon, but I don't understand. If you're going to Lagon to get his blessing, does killing him give you the bless? Oh, he doesn't die. You fight him.
He doesn't die.
You're right. He doesn't die.
Yeah.
He says, I'm sick of this, or he says something.
Yeah. He just wanted to be entertained because you got to his Coliseum. He's very unpredictable, kind of like short attention span. You entertain him for a little bit, and he goes, "Okay, yeah, that's enough. Here, you can have that blessing. Get out of my face."
Okay, so is Lagon the top of the hierarchy of gods?
No, I wouldn't say he's the top of the top. Like, as far as like top of the top hierarchy of gods wise, for just sheer like destructive power, it would be
Terra.
I thought we were just talking about the divine era gods. Top of the top of the known gods, I would say it's I would say the Observer.
Oh.
This person is the Observer, by the way.
Yes.
Damn. That's the top of the top.
Very, very close to Terra. I feel like it's kind of a what context you want to view like power in, like whether they're equal or one is slightly above the other or not.
That's pretty cool.
Okay,
Man.
I'm sorry,
like
Kyle.
What?
The Observer. Okay, you have the Observer. This person.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference between the Observer and a Shade of Orbis?
That's something I know the answer to it, but I can't.
He said no, none for you.
Okay, so you know the answer, and you can't tell Aaron, but can you tell Guilty in code?
Just the Shade of Orbis is like, I'm guessing the Shade of Orbis is like a clone of him or some kind of.
So the Shade of Orbis is a reflection of Orbis's torment, kind of projected into the monolith.
So it's like Riddick. Got it.
Like Riddick? Like Vin Diesel Riddick?
The second one, not the first.
I didn't see the second one. I've only seen the third Riddick movie.
Oh no! Watch the second one. Watch Riddick.
Okay. I saw the third one because my friend drugged me to it. And
on my bingo card, I didn't have Riddick coming up during this stream tonight. Guilty.
So I would say that Riddick movie, the first half where it was just a weird, just him alone in this alien wilderness, was actually pretty neat. But then when other characters came in, it got real dumb real fast. It was a very uneven movie for me. I'll give it 3.5 stars out of 5. That's Kyle's Riddick movie review for tonight.
Excellent.
Well,
okay.
Cool.
You can't tell me the difference between the Shade of Orbis and the Observer, because I always thought this was the Shade of Orbis based upon the things in his chest. That is fine.
Now you know there is a difference.
Now I know there is a difference.
More than you did before.
I will say one of the planned campaign chapters that is going to be coming, and if you're one of those 3 that is in the game now, will shed a little more info on that situation.
Okay, I have a question.
Well,
Wait, Guilty. Hold your question for a second. Let's talk about the final chapter, then we'll do a Q&A, and then we'll wrap up. Okay.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Okay, so now we've gotten Lagon's blessing. We are now come to the new shiny final chapter of the game. How do you get here?
So from here, you get a boat from the Merchant Prince Melbourne to take you down to Sorth Ka, which is the closest harbor town that has a easy route to Majelka, which is the big temple city that houses the Temple of Majasa. And you can find Sorth Ka, right there, just to the left a little bit, Sorth Ka. And initially, your plan is to go to the crossroads, hitch a ride with some caravans and just boom, go straight to the city. But oh no, the Osprix, Rise forces are already in the region and they just tore up the crossroads. So you got to cut through the desert instead of the long way. And half in the desert, you run into some Scalebane, who are a thieves guild essentially in the region, and you free one of the prisoners, a helpful guy named Zarek. And you might have met him in the future when he was a big undead worm skeleton, but right now he's just a sassy human alive man. And you and Zarek make your way to Majelka with the plan of, okay, you are going to stroll into Majasa's temple, have a chat with her, get her blessing too, but oh no, the temple is locked up tight, and that's because Majasa's, heir, essentially, Apophis, is up to some shady stuff, and the temple is on lockdown. And you're kind of stuck going, okay, so this Apophis lady has the temple locked down. I can't get the Majasa to get her blessing. That's a problem. Maybe my shady friend Amanda Desert can help. And he's like, yes, I can help you. And if you go kill the leader of the Scalebane so I can take them over for me, I will help you get into an Osprey spore camp, steal one of the eagles, and we'll just break into the temple from the roof up or from the roof down.
How excited were you for the flying eagle part?
It was very exciting because for a long time we were just kind of like, okay, you get to the war camp, you steal an eagle, and then you're in the temple. And just okay, so how are we going to handle that kind of in between? Is it just going to be a transition? Are we going to make a little pseudo cutscene? Are we going to do it like the Herod and Raya fight where we're going to stage the models or something?
Have you seen the cinematic for Baldur's Gate 3?
Yeah.
I saw the one where they announced the game a long time ago. It was
with
really
the dragons fighting the big.
Yeah, going against the ship. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool.
So I need you guys to do that for every cutscene.
We might have some flying dragons planned for part 1 of the future chapters.
Perfect.
Ooh.
Anywho, go ahead.
Awesome.
I was gonna say, so yeah, I forget which one of us first pitched the idea of what if it was just a sequence you could play where you're playing on the back of the eagle, because Osprey can fly, they can intercept you and try to mess with you. That makes sense. And okay, and I forget whether it was Rick or Fritz who made the mock-up of it, but yeah, one of our level designers made a mock-up of this on the back of a giant eagle level, and we're like, can we get the ground to move underneath you? We think, and someone made the ground to move underneath you, and got the clouds moving, and I was like, oh, this looks really good, actually.
It really is a cool part of the campaign.
It's funny because it's one of the things that came in in the last month or two before that patch had to go out, and it was very much like, okay, we have this idea for this cool sequence. We've got most of it working. Can we scope it in? Turns out we can. So that was really exciting to do.
That is neat.
So yeah, you ride the giant eagle. It gets sniped by one of the Sapphire Nagasa that's up on the roofs, and you crash land on the temple roofs.
Oh.
You start fighting your way through the Nagasa that are guarding the temple. You get inside. You run into Apophis, and she starts summoning in void creatures. What's up with that? She apparently has some kind of connection to the void and or Orbis. She retreats deeper into the temple. You follow after her, and you walk in on her confronting Majasa, after which going, hey, you've been sacrificing us vessel maidens for thousands of years to keep yourself alive, and I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm going to summon up all their dead ghosts to make it go crazy as revenge. She does so. Majasa loses her mind and goes feral. You break in there and you fight her, and Majasa dies because she's been severely weakened by the magic that Apophis did to her. And you go catch up with Apophis. She goes, hey, you are messing with my plans. This is not good. I'm going to rip this big portal in time and send us both out of here. And that currently spits you into EOT, where the Forgotten Knight tells you, yeah, she's long gone. And that's kind of a dangling plot thread. But once we put in Chapter 10, that will play out slightly different.
But again, you're there to get her blessing
Yes.
and she's dead. So now you only still have Lagon's blessing, correct?
Is she
She
dead
ha-
or is she like still kind of like
No, she's dead. You kill her.
ethereal?
There's 100 gallons of blood on the floor during the fight.
So
Her body dies, but I think they can bring her back spiritually.
So there is some background on Majasa that I try to fit in somewhere into Chapter 9's like content. It will likely appear as a lore collectible eventually once we get those spread out throughout the game, and will likely be also referenced in further interactions with Apophis once you run into her again. But the way Majasa's divinity works is she is technically a goddess of like change and has a bit of a rebirth theme to her in that thousands and thousands of years ago when Majasa would pretty much, give birth to a vessel maiden, and that would be the new Majasa, but by shedding her skin, the new it's coming back to me now. Majasa would shed her skin. And
So there's always a Majasa. It's just in a different person, different generation, different form.
that's the original.
Is
That's
it
the
like the Golden Child?
Remind me what the Golden Child is. What's that reference to?
I'm getting into that because of the Oracle. Was that inspired by the Golden Child?
Just let him.
I
No,
don't
he doesn't
know
even know what
the
it
Golden
is.
Child is.
Yeah, he does.
What's the Golden Child?
Yeah. Who's Eddie Murphy?
Oh, I haven't seen that one. That's the one with like the really bad like CGI or puppet monsters, right? I think I
They're
saw
not.
that on like
They're
TV.
practical effects, and the Oracle in that movie is the Oracle.
I think
The
I
lady.
saw the end of that movie on TV on a Sunday
No.
afternoon.
Probably.
Kyle,
So it wasn't.
Kyle,
it wasn't
once-
okay.
once you finish this part, per the lore, you still only have one blessing. Would that be correct
Right.
in saying?
That is correct. We do have a VFX when you beat Majasa of her blessing. I do have plans to make it a little more complicated than that because like Majasa. So going back into the way that she works, and this is something that I want to get into a more interactable at some point, or into Apophis dialogue when you talk to her later, is that originally the way Majasa's divinity worked is that she would shed her skin and essentially be reborn as this kind of new Majasa. Thousands of years ago, one of those shed skins decided that I don't want to stop being Majasa and have this new Majasa take over, and pretty much wrapped herself around the new Majasa and took over.
And that's why she
started
sacrifices those
all the
maidens.
She sacrifices the new Majasas to herself to keep her alive, and Apophis was the next in line for that.
Knowing
So
she was
if-
going to be killed. Yes.
Apophis is like, nah, screw this. I've found a way, a new source of power that can break this system that this corrupt Majasa has.
And that
been doing to
power
keep us
is
alive.
the void.
Correct, but Apophis has made contact with some dark powers and has used that kind of try and help her in this sense because.
But that sounds to me that then it's not the Imperial Empire that you're trying to defeat to get rid of the void. You're trying to fight her because she's the one that started it all.
So this is where the plot kind of starts throwing in some wrinkles into the the player character's understanding of the situation because up to this point, the player character has been thinking that the Moral Empire is the source of the void being unleashed,
Correct.
and everything they know kind of points towards that. But Apophis summoning the void here in the Divine Era kind of puts a big kind of wrinkle in their understanding of events, and the remaining chapters are going to be going into that a bit.
So at this point, you actually don't even know if you care about the lance anymore.
At this point, the player character is like, man, the Apophis kind of threw a huge wrench into everything, and this is something that needs to be taken care of. And the beginning of chapter 10 will very much be tied in with what's up with Apophis and the player character going after her.
Interesting. But
Aaron?
What?
I'm going to say, as long as I've known you, you have never cared about lore, except for one game on December. on December.
Well,
You're like,
did
this
you
is the
actually
lore
care?
of the gods.
He did kind of say that.
And now here, and I'm stoked, and I'm not like upset about, but I'm just surprised at the amount of excitement.
On December, we had a demo where I could only play like 30 levels. So I was like, well, I've got to draw this out, so I'm going to read everything.
And you did, and it pissed me off because it took so long to play.
And I literally couldn't tell you one thing about that game's story.
Exactly. So you pissed me off for no reason.
Okay. All right. Daft and
Aaron,
Guilty.
I'm glad that my story was able to awaken something in you like this.
There you go.
Daft and Guilty. So now we need to put together the story ourselves based upon what he's told us. He's told us that we are going to fight the Immortal Emperor in its human or skeleton form.
He's going to be a skeleton still. He said that.
Okay.
Yes.
He also said that something else about another chapter. What else? He said he Easter egged another thing we're going to do.
You're going to find more info about why the Temple of Terra in the Ancient Era isn't floating anymore.
Yes,
the Ancient Era, which is the mysterious dinosaur era right now, as far as
this is the era that has the very beautiful map where you do nothing. And Mike always says,
you fight the giant fire, not dragon,
and then
the dinosaurs,
and then the poison spitter,
and then Mike has told us that you will travel into the ancient era in the new chapters because obviously there's nothing.
Yeah, one of the new chapters is very ancient era focused.
I mean, it's a huge area. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's cool.
It's actually really nice looking.
It's gonna be a cool one. It's. I'm very excited for what we're doing.
It feels to me, it feels like the Rogue felt when the Rogue came out. It was all nice and shiny. It was like the new cart scent. The Rogue just out, even if you didn't like the class itself, like the synergy and just the Rogue itself felt very complete. This could feel that same way, where it's already been there, it's been sitting in a while. Now we got a story that's going to kind of end up in there, so that's kind of cool to look forward to.
That always happens when we have like a big gap in like, okay, we've been working on this for a long time. You can feel the fact that we are getting better at this.
And this will be these last 3 chapters. It'll be one dropped at a time. It's not going to be, here's the last 3 chapters, the story is done. It's going to be, here's chapter 10, and that's dropping during cycle 2. Here's chapter 11. This is cycle 6.
I can't give any details on like the release structure like that.
Oh, of course.
You're pretty close to what's the most likely way we'll approach this. But yeah, I can't confirm anything on that.
Yeah, I'm just using an example of like how it would be released.
So when Guilty gets his were panda, which is being confirmed by you now, that will be great, and nothing else will matter. So that's all that matters.
Kyle, we're like way over time. Are you okay answering a few questions? Are you good?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm good.
Now that we've completed the story. Hey, Daft, I know now. I know the story of Last Epoch.
Recite it to me, please.
Okay, so in chapter 1, you got it.
Okay, ready? The story of Last Epoch. You get the first shard, you get the second shard, you get the third shard, you put together the epoch, you travel through time to the Imperial era, and then every single chapter, you are trying to defeat the Immortal Emperor, and you get the lance, and then you got to get the blessings from the gods to empower the lance to be able to kill him, and you get Lagon's blessing, and then you kill Majasa, and then the other chick flies away with Void, and that's the story.
Okay, so James Earl Jones is the bad guy. Everyone should know that. He's Skeletor. Awesome.
And the Falconeer is the most important thing. Yeah, of course.
The Falconeer is my most wanted thing.
Okay, Guilty. Now you can ask your question, if you remember it.
I probably don't.
It's something about the 80s, I think.
No, it was okay. So a lot of like you have the Oracle, which is reminiscent of the Golden Child, and there are other things in the game that like harken back to 80s cinema, Conan, pretty much like Willow, stuff like that. Anything that was fantasy in the 80s that you might have grown up with, did that make its way into the game, or did you just say, hey, this is an idea I have?
I mean, everyone is influenced by the media they consume through their lives. Like,
True.
It's funny that you name drop Conan, Willow, and the Golden Child because I haven't seen any of those movies.
Wow.
Yeah, but
Well,
like
good.
Yes.
but yeah, like there's obviously like Diablo influences, there's Chrono Trigger references, there's the Final Fantasy influences, there's Lord of the Rings influences, like everything. Whenever you tell any kind of story, what is a part of you goes into it, and what is a part of you is all the stories you've experienced. Like,
Yeah. I like that.
So,
It-
did you actually use the hero's journey for any of the stuff?
I mean, I'm aware of the hero's journey. I know like all steps of it. Like I did like plot it down on like a graph and go like this is step one, this is step two. But like I will say like that's kind of pacing likely shows up in here just because it's a good pacing for any kind of story where like you're in a familiar situation, you feel a bit of resistance to getting out of your comfort zone, and then you're thrown into this new world. You encounter these trials and problems, and eventually you kind of start making your way back to what you once knew, but you're completely different now. It's just really good fundamentals for like a story about a character growing.
Fantastic.
My turn. On screen right now, this upper district.
Uh-huh.
Was this once the bazaar?
So I won't say that this was once the bazaar. We definitely modeled some of the prototypes of the bazaar off of this like aesthetic and this kind of layout.
I swear on the initial images of when the bazaar, before like all the changes and factions came out, when I saw this new chapter and I ran here, I was like, this is the bazaar images that they showed back in the day.
Actually, the earliest version of the bazaar was the southern section of EOT, those three little stalls back there. That's the absolute earliest version of the bazaar as far as like a level in the game you can actually walk around in.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool.
Right
And
down there.
all those merchants down there that had like dialogue like, oh, we'll sell something eventually, NYI, and they've all been removed by now, I'm pretty sure.
I love that. Questions. Where
before
is
we
Bill
start-
and Ted?
I was going to say before we start the questions, I kind of want to ask a question to you guys since I like I like that segment of like we guys piece up together the rest of the story. I've seen like posts and like speculation over the years over who is the immortal emperor, and it's always got me kind of curious. Like I wonder what people who people think the immortal emperor is and why they think the immortal emperor is this specific person. I want to hear what your guys' theories are.
See,
on who the
Aaron,
immortal
I
emperor
told
is.
you he was the main bad guy. I told you he was. Okay, we had a conversation. The Emperor's the main bad guy.
I always wonder about him because you just
Yeah,
see
we
him.
actually talked about this.
I think the immortal emperor is Mike. That's Mike.
Well, no, Mike is the primalist.
Mike is the primalist. I don't know. I legit have no idea. Daft would be the one that has the best guess because he loves.
This is like a hint that it's someone we've encountered.
It is.
That
I
is
don't,
true. I will offer that hint. The player character
That's
has
fantastic.
encountered the Immortal Emperor, not as the Immortal Emperor,
it's
in the current
Gaspar.
campaign.
Is it
Can't be
Gaspar?
It's not
I'm
Gaspar.
not going to confirm or deny any of the answers.
It's not
but I'm just
Gaspar.
really
It's fun-
curious
it's
about what
fun.
people think.
Okay, it's fun to listen. Yeah. Okay.
It's normally like the first person you encounter. Like who is like right at the
Well,
beginning.
It would be when you get to that first little town where you have your chest.
Ray Skywalker. Good God.
It could
It's
be any
not
of those
Rey.
people. I don't know. I mean, it could be anybody. As far as if it's thrown in there secretly.
Oh, the old guy on the ground. The first dude yeah.
we're not. This isn't Saw.
He's not gonna.
Where
He's not gonna
Saw's on
confirm
the
it.
guy's on the ground.
Just because he has to cut his own foot off doesn't mean he turns into
The
skeleton.
shop. Is it
I
the
love
person
all of
selling the
these
fruit?
answers.
It's the fruit seller, Daft.
Maybe.
I love all of these answers.
The girl's
You know what?
uncle or whatever.
There could be that one snotty where you get the unique, where you get the ring, where you get the ring or the gloves.
Dude,
and you
the
do
person.
the guy gives you
love-
teleport.
I love Riza.
He's in that first zone. You don't have to do his quest, but when you do
That's
it, you
kinda
get
cool. Oh,
the unique item.
Yulia.
He's the first.
Yulia.
Whoever the Immortal Emperor is, it's in this zone, Council Chambers. Guaranteed. Someone clip this. The person's in here somewhere.
Yeah, please clip it. So
Look at this gambler. He looks sinister.
I mean, like I said,
Artemis.
It's the gambler. You called it. It's the gambler.
Could be the gambler. I was thinking this guy right here.
Well, when they redid the art
He's
for
a
that,
prick.
when they redid the art for him, I was like, "Yep, that art fits."
Yep. He's kind of
Okay,
prickish.
okay. Kyle, one little question. You don't have to answer it. Is this a person that you naturally come across in a side quest or main quest? Or is the Immortal Emperor someone that's like, you know, this soldier that I can click on randomly?
The main quest involves, by going through the main quest, you absolutely interact with the person who becomes the Immortal Emperor.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, that's that I didn't expect him to say.
it's my werebear, everyone.
May I tear a smile upon you?
Yogi becomes the emperor.
Rat.
Oh wow, that's really awesome. You encounter so many people.
Daft, you know
You
what you
do.
need to do? Daft, I need you to start
that?
a new character, only play the main quest, and then write down every person you're required to talk to. And we could
I
do
need you-
process of elimination. I bet
Right,
we
but-
could figure it out.
Oh, we need to
Maybe.
4chan this. We need to go on 4chan and have them study.
You know,
We'll
but
have an answer tomorrow.
wait, Daft, he didn't say someone you talk to. It might be like a bad guy you interact with or fight against.
It could be someone you talk to.
Someone
You have to at
talk
least
to.
engage with them so they're delivering or accepting a quest or
Rich.
something along those lines.
Rich says, "Damn, who knew it was that random thief in the last chapter?" If you're right,
No, he turns into a worm.
yeah. I mean, it could be, couldn't it?
He
Would you still love
turns,
Derek if he was a worm?
he turns into a worm. I mean, there's no way it's like a random. It's got to be like one of the main people, right?
We'll walk around. It could be old man with a beard.
I mean, it could be right
Gaspar.
here, right? But I don't think it would be a character they use as a echo boss.
Well, they could. So
That
you
wouldn't.
can-
I don't see that
You
happening.
can implement a boolean. Has dude passed this part? Yes, and then it changes forever. So it doesn't really matter. They could change them after. Hints.
So Kyle,
Throwing you
how
hints.
does Etera like fit into the story at all?
So, Etera is the goddess who pretty much made the four gods in the divine era, and she has been dormant since the ancient era. And she is the one responsible for kind of helping humanity, kind of preparing the world for humanity and helping humanity kind of be ready to be in the world, in the ancient era. But due to events, she is now dormant, and it's only the gods that she empowered and created that can guide humanity now.
But if Etera was able to create gods, and even though she's dormant, if she was awake, would you say she'd be stronger than the Observer?
They are very close in power, and it really depends on what you like. What are you trying to
Okay,
do
I'll
or
rephrase the
achieve?
question. If they were close in power, would you say Etera would be good power and the Observer would be bad power, like a Luke and Vader style?
It's about how you use power. Like, you would be more inclined to think of Etera's power as good and be more inclined to think of the Observer's power as evil, but it's about how the power is used. They
Okay,
are more like
I'll
siblings
rephrase for a
than-
second time.
I
Does
will say the Etera and the Observer are more like siblings than anything else in relation to each other.
But you could say that Etera has good intentions and the Observer has bad intentions, or no? All right. I don't know.
I mean, that's
You'll get
just
more
getting into the alignment thing.
You'll get more info on that exact situation in one of the upcoming campaign chapters.
Well, there you
Okay. Will Eterra come back in one of the future campaign chapters?
Depends on what you mean back. Like, well,
Will she become undormant?
I'm not gonna answer that.
Oh, that's a yes, right, Daft? Come on.
That was a yes.
It depends on what
Yes.
it depends on what
I'm
you
not going to
mean
answer that, but you can figure it out.
It depends on what you mean by undormant.
Awake. Wait.
Moving around and sentient.
Kyle,
Again,
I'm just
not
gonna
answer
say,
that.
Kyle, I really have learned a lot
It was awesome.
during this stream.
I really,
Yes.
this is great, man.
I
I'm
actually,
glad you guys are having a great time.
this is great. Does anybody out there currently watching have any questions?
I have
69 of you.
I have 2 questions that were asked in Discord over the last couple days.
Go ahead, Daft.
One's so the first one is, what's the story behind the Ice Beetle shrines?
Mm.
The Ice Builder Shrines are that our lead systems architect was implementing shrines, and they wanted to have a shrine that summons a minion that helps you. And I think we had just recently set up the Marsh Beetle enemy, and they took our Marsh Beetle enemy, made it icy, and like, okay, that's going to be our minion that the shrine gives you. And yeah, we just haven't added any other minion shrines.
Right.
So that's
That's one of the
It's
best
really a
shrines.
shrine to guilty, and you put it in the game. Thank you.
And the second question's a little less serious, but it's still fun. What are the most popular recipes which use Groll milk? And the
What's
Groll?
So
Is it-
the
yep.
most popular roll milk recipe would be roll milk custard ice cream.
What in the world are you guys talking about?
Well, you
Yeah,
make it
Lord,
custard,
maybe
so
roll.
you gotta use a mix of groll milk and groll egg custard, groll egg yolks, and you gotta temper it properly so it doesn't curdle. You freeze it with plenty of sugar, and then you get groll custard. Groll
Hey, you know,
frozen
those little-
custard.
Those little
Hailberian.
armored guys that wander around and they change. If you kill them, they change to the void version.
See,
And then
Got it.
See, you don't want the custard made from their milk. That's it's all purple, very very bitter, not good.
So you have to get it before they turn.
Exactly. If they're purple, it's not good anymore. It's like when you go into go get your like some bread, you find some mold on it, you don't want to eat them, or you can just kind of eat around the mold. You kind of like make the custard around the void parts of the roll.
Got it.
And my tangent question for that is it related to David Grohl? The
I don't believe so. I forget where
Foo
the
Fighters
name Grohl-
drummer, Nirvana.
I forget where the name Grohl came from. I feel like that's. The name, why we named them Grolls. I think that's the one that's kind of lost at time because I cannot remember why we named them that.
Just question, because first time I saw it, I was like, David Grohl, are these? Does the person who created, is he a fan of David Grohl? Is this coincidence? Because that's not a really common name, but okay.
Well,
So the 2 I had from Discord.
Everybody from Perry the Pig stream, welcome. This is my
up, Perry?
podcast, This Week in Action. And with us today, we have Kyle, the Loremaster from EHG. And he took us through the whole story. And if you have a question, we are actually wrapping up the stream in the next few minutes. So feel free to put any lore question. By the way, Kyle, I promised someone I would ask this question. Do you have any plans to put sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads?
Rich,
In the
he's
game.
asking for you.
So one of the things that we have talked about is eventually we want to play around with more sci-fi and high-tech themes. This is very much likely to be a way past 1.0,
Damn.
past the campaign content
Okay.
chapter.
Okay.
We
Fair.
want to dabble. We want to dip our feet into more themes because we have a big, broad theme with time travel, and
Right.
that opens up a lot of doors of things we do. So we have talked about finding a way to get in some kind of like more sci-fi kind of high-tech-ish kind of theme in somewhere. So that
Mind blown.
might take the shape of sharks and laser beams. Who knows?
Harry's got a question for you. How long did it take to decide to make Mortitas into Immortal Emperor?
So I know I said I wasn't going to confirm or deny any of the Immortal Emperor theories. But
Well,
that was
we're
wrong.
trying real
But that
hard,
was wrong.
though.
It's not
Aw,
Marditas.
aw.
You heard
Sorry,
that, Perry.
Sorry.
I'm being
Not
mean.
confirmed.
I'm being
Choice, good choice though. Sorry, Perry. Sorry.
mean. But no, I want to do other things with Morditas. I think that Morditas is a character I deliberately, like very deliberately, left his plot thread hanging as. And actually, this is inspired by a World of Warcraft quest, actually. Way back in the, I think, Cataclysm expansion, you go and, like, free an evil satyr to help you with some, like, elementals that are wrecking stuff. And he says very clearly to you, hey, yeah, I'm going to help you because you're freeing me, but I'm going to go do some awful stuff now that I'm free laters. And then, no joke, like, a couple expansions later, he's, like, a big-time raid boss. And I always thought that was really cool. And Morditas' situation is kind of inspired by that. Like, okay, you have to undo the thing that's keeping him imprisoned now because the pressing problem is more important. And I am very deliberately kind of leaving Morditas as this is a plot thread we can pick back up for a future content thing and do something really cool with it.
I got this question a lot throughout the week. I kind of prepped you on it earlier when we were chatting. Guns. This game involves time travel.
I need guns. I need flintlock.
So
now people always say bow and arrow, crossbows. These are all projectiles.
Grim Dawn style.
Grim Dawn, yeah.
Now Mike on Fridays has always had a hard. This game will never have guns.
Is he wrong?
Is he wrong?
I will say Mike is.
He can be wrong.
I'll say Mike's kind of like he has a closer kind of tabs on the gameplay side of things than I do. So if he's saying never, then it's likely to be never. But like I said,
can I say yes and just negate his no?
I mean, you can say yes, but I can't speak to what that will negate or not negate. But it kind of ties back to we want to play around with some sci-fi-ish kind of themes down the road eventually. I don't know if they'll end up with players having guns as a weapon type.
My thought is that EHG is not going to put guns in, but they're going to put like crossbows and you know, like there's going to be
swords are more likely than guns. I'll say that
there'll be guns of a sort, right? Because he's talked about putting in like crossbows,
like flintlock muskets or something,
like void bullets and things like that.
There's a lot of just like system and item systems, something with adding in a new weapon type like that. So if Mike's saying a hard no, there's probably some good reasons.
But technically, lore-wise, there's nothing that would stop a pistol from being in it.
The main thing stopping a pistol being in it is the fact that the Ruined Era kind of ends all timelines before technology can advance that far. But if you say stop Orbis and save reality and timelines can advance further into eras that can have more technology, otherwise maybe there could be a robot with a laser.
I accept that answer. Guilty, you heard it. I accept it.
I do too.
Yeah, that works.
Also, don't. I saw that post from Rich. Don't say I'm disagreeing with Mike, because if Mike's saying hard no on guns,
no. So his hard no doesn't mean anything to me. It's hard yes.
We won't clip you out of context. Don't worry.
We'll put me in there saying Mike needs guns.
Next, Guilty will make a short. Guns confirmed. No, don't do that.
Yeah, guns confirmed in last Epoch.
Yeah, just use the recording to make an AI based off my voice saying, yes, we will have guns.
Right. Yes, that's exactly going to happen tomorrow.
They just have to be like, Dirty Harry guns.
There's a question here. Did he design the giant trees, and can we fight them?
Which giant trees?
I'm not sure. It's not specific.
I think maybe the cinematic one that you walk over when it just walks under you. They added it. They moved it to a more prominent spot. You used to kind of see it
around. Yeah.
You would hear it before, and you'd see the back end, but now it actually crosses under the bridge and walks.
The
past
ones
you.
walking in the back.
There's the giant tree ants.
Yeah, you fight it in the Lightless Arbor dungeon.
Can I fight the tree ants?
Oh, the Lightless Arbor dungeon. Yeah, you fight him in the dungeon, silly.
Oh, the thing I don't go to.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
But that's where you hang out with the Lost Brigand.
I guess I will now because it's cool.
Very cool.
That had that's a fun patch. I really like making Grin and the Lost Brigand. Those are fun characters to make.
Kyle, do you feel like if the monolith was expanded, you would continually pull people from the campaign as future bosses? Like
Ooh.
monolith bosses?
I mean, that's always a very tempting, it's very tempting to do because, like, not only is there already, like, oftentimes already a model to kind of, like, base it off of.
The assets already half made, or yeah.
Yeah, the assets, like, half made. There's already kind of a prompt there design-wise of, like, okay, this plus this, or this, but will this change? And for the alternate timeline theming, if it's something that you recognize, that kind of better communicates that this is an alternate version of something that would normally be very different. So it's always very enticing to do that direction because it's efficient resource wise, and also if you recognize it, then that communicates as an alternate timeline. But there's nothing that nails us down to that.
Now we're getting lightsabers, void squirrels.
Void squirrels made me laugh.
I mean, they're in as an item.
Thing. You have squirrels.
They're not
squirrels.
Void squirrels.
No.
Just
I want
squirrels.
purple print squirrels. They need to sing Purple Rain and just.
Gosh.
Oh, I'd buy it.
Any other lore questions from chat other than sharks with laser beams? Any other lore questions? Guilty, don't just make up a question. You don't have anything.
Okay, so we've been talking about the Emperor. And the question was, who is it? We're not going to give confirmation. Will it be the final chapter? Like
It'll be.
Will the reveal happen at some point?
I won't say it will happen within those last 3 chapters. I won't say at what point the fight with the Mole Emperor or the reveal happens across those last 3 chapters, but it is within them.
Okay, all right.
Question: will we meet all the gods? So if Iterra created 4, we've only met 2, 3.
I mean, technically 4 if you count Raya swooping in.
So Raya, Hera, Lagon, and Majasa 4. Yeah. Hey, you've already met them all. You've already met them all.
I will say you will, encounter Raya again.
Apophis.
Apophis is not technically a god, but she has a complicated kind of relationship with Majasa, and the kind of divinity kind of spread between them. So they got a complicated situation there. But
yeah, because she would have become the god, but she would have had to. Yeah, that would.
Yeah. So Majasa was pretty much keeping her successors from becoming the new Majasa by sacrificing them to herself. And Apophis was like, nah, I don't want to do that. And rather than, I want to do this because she wasn't doing that because she wants to be the new Majasa. She's doing it because she doesn't want to die. And she was going to be out of that cycle period.
That's awesome.
Reasonable.
I like Apophis a lot. Apophis doesn't get much screen time currently, but I like her story a lot. And
she's going to have a big role in the next 3 chapters.
Yes.
Cool.
Hey.
Very nice.
And speaking of encountering the gods, you don't see Raya for that long in the current campaign. You will see him again in those last 3 chapters.
Oh, so Raya's coming back.
Yeah, he has to. I mean, he just came in,
killed the horse, the deer, the elk,
and then left you there to rot. So yeah,
pretty much there's 3 main antagonistic factions: Raya, Mobile Empire, and the Void, and you're going to be interacting with pretty much all 3 of those over the course of the last 3 chapters.
And it is interesting because in the first 9 chapters, the Void is the focus, but we still technically know nothing about it, right? I mean,
you'll know more about it once we get these last 3 chapters in.
Okay.
To make a comparison, I'm going to go back to Grim Dawn. So in Grim Dawn, you play a character who's just infected by the nonsense. Is there a similarity there? Like, is that the thing driving the entire story? Is the like this infection that's spiritual, or is there is it purely time travel? Doc, please put the wheels up.
Are you talking about the player character specifically, or does it in a more broad sense?
Well, like the character you play, because I believe you've mentioned that regardless of your multiplayer or single player, you're still going to get a single player experience as far as story goes. Will you always be Marty McFly?
Pretty much, if I'm understanding the question correctly, you're very much always going to be involved in time travel and jumping between eras, and very likely, whenever we put in content beyond the planned chapter content and the kind of planned end of that base storyline, we'll still be having time travel and alternate realities and all that kind of stuff play at least some role in any kind of future stories, because that is kind of like the heart of the game thematically is time travel, multiple eras. Like say, like this is super just kind of off the cuff, just kind of throwing stuff out there, like future storylines beyond the chapter. Say, oh, you're just exploring a different continent in the world that you haven't seen before. We would likely do things about seeing that in multiple eras as well. Like we will always like have time travel as kind of a core part of what you're doing in the game from a story sense.
And could you share that cycles for the future would be based upon the time travel theme, right? Like, is the plan that cycle 10 is you're in the future? You know, I mean, like the idea is that.
So, well, let's say like every like major like kind of story arc, like big thing that we're going to be doing story wise will have time travel as an element. Like individual cycles have the flexibility and room to be like, oh, this one is just about what these crazy wizards over here are doing, and
yes,
it's very likely that we'll see what impact that has on other eras, but it can also just be what they're doing right there and how that affects things. So it really depends on whether a piece of content is more focused on this kind of mechanic or focused on a story that we're trying to tell with it. Or like, so time travel is always very likely to appear, and any kind of major story kind of push will likely have time travel as part of it. But there's nothing saying like every cycle will have time travel as a part, but it's super likely to go.
And the story will end at chapter 12.
What we're calling our like current campaign will end at 12, though I've always kind of personally thought of Endgame as chapter 13 because
the monolith yeah
I've always thought of Monolith as chapter 13 essentially, but all the lead up to that ending in chapter 12 will be end of that kind of base campaign. How we tackle adding in more story to the game after that point is still something that we are always talking about, or they want that to still be in the form of chapters, or be in the form of some other systems. Like, so that's something we're always talking about.
Okay. Awesome.
Nice.
I think that's gonna do it. So funny. I tell Kyle we're prepping, we're setting up the scene, we're talking earlier. I was like, we have a hard stop at 90 minutes, but every once in a while we'll finish a little early. It's 2 hours and 35 minutes.
I'm blown over by an whole hour.
Just we blew it a whole hour. We went over, but I gotta say, and I'm only
gonna went to sleep already. So
I'm only gonna speak for myself that I got a lot out of this. I mean, really, you explaining. Yes. So anybody out there that came late, we literally went chapter by chapter, and Kyle talked about chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Answered questions from us along the way, took questions from the community, and then took our questions at the end, and gave me, honestly, a lot to think about for the next 3 chapters and what's actually going to happen in the story and what these 2 freaking people are on the UI, the Terra and the Observer. I've probably told 100,000 people that this is the Shade of Orbis. And it's not the Shade of Orbis. It's the Observer.
Well,
like I said, once we put in those missing chapters, the reason why you would have made that quote unquote mistake will become more and more apparent.
Yes.
So there was a thing going on with the Shades Orb as an observer that you'll learn more about as these chapters come out.
Well, I guess that makes me feel a little better. Oh, look, right here, they're gonna fight. Uh-oh.
Oh,
Wait,
boy.
that's not the Shade of Orbis, though. So
I am breaking the cycle.
all I'm
I
saying is that's a cool
refuse.
Naga. That's a really cool Naga. I have one more
Yeah.
question.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So, when you meet the Oracle in this game, did you do the more Oracle, like the design for it, the idea of it, the Naga?
So I always intended the Oracle to be a Nagasa. Just for a long time, we didn't have Nagasa models in game, so she was just kind of an old lady for a long time until we put in Chapter 9.
Yep.
And then when Chapter 9 came out, okay, we are going to, now that we have an actual Nagasa model, let's throw this in here to be the Oracle so that she can look like how she's always intended to look.
Okay.
Very good.
I can't say a large portion, but a portion of us, myself included, every time we see the Oracle, as a Naga, the way we see her, we think the Golden Child. That's why I brought that up earlier.
I really need to go see the Golden Child.
I know, you've brought it up like 10 times.
It's a verbatim scene. It's worth watching. But I watch this game's cinematics. I follow the story, and I pick up things that are brought to me through 80s cinema, like I said. Some books, some magazines, comics. And it's really good. It's entertaining, and thank you.
Thank you.
I'll reiterate what someone said real quick. Seriously, we love the game and appreciate you sharing. That was from Brow87. So that's a very common theme from all the
And then
people that we
Rich
talk to in
said
Discord and stuff.
tenfold on that comment.
Yeah, so.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Okay, everybody. Thank you, Kyle. Really, really great discussion. I feel like I can make builds, and now I can discuss lore. It's like now I'm like a jack of all trades, guilty. Now you can't make fun of me as often as you normally.
Yeah, make your
are gonna
lore
make.
builds.
Not as often.
You know what I
Still
should
live in
do?
Idaho.
I could totally make a boot camp video now, and it can be the lore of
Yes.
LE.
As we know it up to date. Yeah. Be a nice video.
I'm still gonna screw something up. That's
Well,
not right. I'll be
well,
like, I got
if you need
insider
help with that,
information.
If you ever need to ask a question, to prep for that bootcamp video, you know who to ask. So,
Now
There
I
you
know
go.
exactly who to ask. See, and I found you through that Kickstarter video page. So, all right,
True.
everybody. Thank you all for coming out tonight. If you are not a part of the Discord, please
You got
join.
it.
The link is right there. Now, normally what me, Daft, and Guilty would do is do a bonus hour for Patreons only. We've already gone an hour over, so as tonight goes, we are not going to be doing that bonus hour, but I'll get with Daft and Guilty early tomorrow, and we will think of something that we can do for Patreons. That death doesn't count, Guilty, because I was doing my little spiel.
Dead. Oh, the most DED of DEDs.
Yeah. That's a good way to end the stream. You have been
Dead.
slain by a blood pool from my
I got blood.
Shasta
Yeah,
says
that's-
it counts. That's
that
facts.
does not count.
That
Now I
sounds
have
like a
to
lie.
kill. Now this is my this is my level 97 unarmed paladin. I think I could kill the campaign boss.
I hope so.
Cannot
She-
blame
she's-
the wife
she-
this time, Aaron.
All right, close.
Ah!
She's ripped.
Ah!
She's already ripped this thing.
Ah!
Huh?
Can't blame the wife this
Nina
time.
would whoop this thing's ass. What are you talking about? Aaron's just the only one that can't do it the first time.
Thank you to all the Patreons out there. We are now up to 66. People ask me all the time, Aaron, what is the best way to support you? The best way to support is Patreon, and you get the perks of being in the VIP and part of the bonus hour and lots of other goodies. The Patreon is linked right there as well. That's all I've got. Kyle, you get the final word tonight. My fingers already on the button.
So, we were gonna, you know how sometimes potions will drop and they're called beer.
Yes.
I pushed for a long time to have one of those super rare potion alternate drops to be Grow Milk. Good night, everybody.
Oh, roll milk.